Chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dewbs & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 3 hours, yes, you heard it, 3 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are in the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and director of Car 26, Lois Perry, and also former editor of The Labour List, Peter Edwards, and former Labour MP, Stephen Pound. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 3 o'clock. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the UK in 2022. The last crossings took place on Christmas Day when 90 people made the journey from France on 2 small boats. It brings the total number for the year to 45,756. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021, when more than 28,000 migrants crossed over. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to bring in new laws this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican this morning. Pope Benedict XVI died within the Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He will lie in state there for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the nation, including in central London, where a crowd of more than 100,000 gathered to watch the New Year fireworks display. London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which is the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth, highlighted the Lioness's Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. But it was a much quieter affair in Scarborough thanks to Thor, the Arctic walrus. The Yorkshire county cancelled its New Year fireworks to avoid causing him any distress. He was spotted in the town's harbour, and it's thought to be the first one ever seen in the county. He's since moved on, and experts say he was likely just taking a rest before a long journey north. In his New Year message to Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes the war with Russia will end this year. He spoke as missiles rained down in and around the capital, Kyiv. Ukraine's armed forces says Russia has launched more than 31 missiles and 12 airstrikes at targets across the country overnight. Curfews ranging from 7 p.m. to midnight made celebrations for the start of the new year impossible in public spaces. The Archbishop of Canterbury is urging the government to tackle what he calls the country's broken social care system. Justin Welby used his New Year message to say care homes are struggling to cover energy bills and to retain staff. He's called on everyone to rise to the challenge of repairing the system. Well, the government says social care was made a priority in last month's autumn budget, pledging £7.5 billion in support over the next 2 years. 2 men have been charged with the murder of a non-league footballer who was stabbed to death in Birmingham on Boxing Day. 23-year-old Cody Fisher was attacked at a nightclub in Digbeth. 21-year-old Cammy Carpenter and 22-year-old Remy Gordon will appear before magistrates on Monday. And from today, more than 4,600 bus routes across England will have fares capped at £2 for a single trip. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined the scheme, which will last until the end of March. The cap is being paid for with a £60 million government fund. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. Let's get back to Nana.
So good afternoon, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now it seems that both political parties have been sleeping at the wheel. Whilst they went on about Beer Gate, Party Gate, Wallpaper Gate, getting rid of successive Home Secretaries, I think we're on number 7 now, changing their leader and basically living in a Westminster bubble. Both the Labour and Tory party are as bad as each other, they're guilty of sin with this. There's little between their policies, and they messed about like school kids arguing in a playground at school. The problem remained. It was the problem of illegal channel crossings, and it went unchecked. And in my view, the political wranglings was the perfect distraction from not doing any actual work and the perfect opportunity for people traffickers to go under the radar. A record number of people crossed the channel to arrive in the UK in small boats in 2022. More than 45,000, that's a 60% increase from the previous year. And those are the ones that we know of who have risked their lives making that dangerous journey. And why? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Hotel accommodation, and they'll probably get treated a lot quicker than us by the NHS. Also, Theresa May's anti-slavery laws and an industry of human rights lawyers. Basically, once you get here, you've got 2 hopes of going back, Bob Hope and no hope. And a large proportion of them coming from, well, NATO country Albania. The government promised tough measures to stop the flow of boats and crack down on the people smugglers. And also they came up with the Rwanda plan, which hasn't really got off the ground. I know, it's an obvious pun. And it seems to me that now more and more people are arriving in fewer boats. Last year, the number was up to 41. Now it's gone up to 45. 45 people packed into a small boat. A government spokeswoman said the global migration crisis is causing an unprecedented strain on our asylum system. You don't say. The plan is to use disused cruise ships, another idea being floated around, I know, which could house the asylum seekers. I can't resist these puns. And the government are due to spend about $2.3 billion a year on hotels. It is a total mess. Rishi, you need to get a handle on this, otherwise you're toast. And the figures are shocking. More than 45,000 people crossing the Channel. It's ridiculous. The figures include 90 people crossing the Channel on Christmas Day in 2 boats. Bad weather conditions meant that there were no crossings in the run-up to New Year. Then over the past year, we've had 3 Home Secretaries, Priti Patel, Grant Shapps and now Suella Braverman. Each of them have tried to tackle the crisis. There's been the Rwanda plan, then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announcing new legislation designed to make it harder for migrants to stay in the UK if they are coming from safe countries like Albania. So I'm asking, as record numbers of migrants crossing the Channel last year, how do we ensure that we don't get the same amount of people coming across this year? So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. We will start with the Great British Debate. There's some shocking figures. As I said, 45,000 people crossed the English Channel in small boats in 2022, which was last year or yesterday. It's the largest number ever, up 60% on the year before. And this hour, I'm asking, how can we stop the flood of people coming across the Channel? Also, have we reached tipping point when it comes to climate change? Provisional figures from the Met Office show 2020 will be the warmest year on record in the UK, although I question when those records began. Temperatures reached their highest ever in the country at just over 40 degrees, which in some places isn't actually that hot. Is this the year that we reach tipping point when it comes to climate change? Then stay with me this hour. Tell me what you think as ever and everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, so it's fast approaching 9 minutes after 4 o'clock. Let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel Lois Perry, Director of Car 26, Peter Edwards, the former editor of The Labourist, and Stephen Pound, former Labour MP. Right, so we're going to start with the record number of crossings. I'm going to start with you, Stephen Pound. Labour.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Go on then, because I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year. Do you have a nice one? I stayed in, yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah, I bet you did.
I drank a bottle of champagne on my own.
You stayed in on your own? I thought I saw you on the Thames there, surrounded by drones and fireworks.
That would be me. That would be me.
It was something sparkly. Now, look, there's a couple of things we can do with this immigration business. Firstly, you know, let's stop going on with ludicrous plans like Rwanda. Rwanda is a distraction and it's a nonsense. The Israelis did it. They put 4,000 people in Rwanda. They stayed there for about half an hour and then they all disappeared. What we need to do is, firstly, anyone who comes to this country illegally needs to actually be held in a processing centre.
Well, they are.
They're not. They're being dispersed all over the country.
They're trying to hold them. They're going.
Look, secondly, fingerprints. We really need ID cards in this country, and we're one of the few countries in Europe that do not have ID cards. At the moment, you get in, you manage to get through wherever you go, Marston or somewhere, get a job in the car wash. After 5 years, you apply for something called the regularisation of overstayers, and you're home free. Keep your head down, and you're laughing. Look, there's an economic pull, and I don't deny for a minute that there's a push factor, and we're not talking about people from Albania. I've been to Albania many times. It's a decent, clean, safe place. People from Afghanistan, from Korea, from Syria, from Iraq, there are those people who are actually being pushed out. And I think we have to differentiate them from those people for whom they're actually thinking that this is a commercial operation. And if we had ID cards, then we could simply go to the car wash and say, let's see your card.
Oh, come on, listen, you can fudge an ID card, you can fudge a passport. Well, Lois, I'm going to get to Lois. The ID card.
ID cards.
More control, more power.
More control, more power. I do agree with you, actually, about having a place where people are held and they are processed, so they're not dispersed throughout the country.
You'll never see them again.
But the problem with ID cards is it won't just be the people that are coming over here legally that have got them. It'll be you, it'll be me, it'll be all of us.
I bet you've got one anyway.
What do you mean?
If I looked in your wallet or your handbag, I bet there'd be 4 or 5 ID cards in there.
OK, but I don't have to present it if somebody asks me to, which you would have to. And after the Second World War, there was a very special case because basically ID cards were kept for quite a long time. And this guy was stopped and he was asked to present his papers, and he actually took it to court, and he actually got it overturned in court, the fact because what happens is the government retains these powers. They don't hand them back when the crisis is over. So no, I'm against ID cards, but I do like the idea of having everybody kept in a secure place.
But that to me is straightforward. That's what we want. We want people to be kept in a secure place.
Yeah.
I'm not so fussed about ID cards as it was. I mean, I think it's more power, more control. But I believe, I mean, if you look on your driving licence, it's got your home address, everything. I never keep my driving licence in my wallets. Peter.
Well, I do keep my driving licence in my wallet. So I think I was very interested to hear what Steve said because, of course, actually, if I'm stopped by a police officer while driving, I do have to show them my driving licence. So it's not just a discretionary thing at the moment, whereas I don't have to show my bank card to anyone. But, of course, these are not ID cards because I'm not obliged to carry my driving licence, but most of us do. To be honest, and Steve is perhaps liberated because of the role he has now. I don't think there's an appetite among any party in the Commons to have ID cards, so I can't see it happening anytime soon. I was very intrigued because it's a topic, on the broader topic of the channel crossings. I've been challenged a lot on some GB News programmes, and about 6 months ago, Labour were calling for much closer cooperation with France, and that was perhaps dismissed as a bit wishy-washy or insufficient. But then that was one of the things that the new Prime Minister announced a few months later, because if, regardless of being a global issue, if seaborne migrants coming through France, it just seems completely logical that we'd cooperate with the French government.
Well, I think it was more the fact that we didn't seem to be getting the cooperation because they didn't really like.
Was this their fault?
No. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that it was a wish list. I think that everybody wanted better cooperation. I don't think that's something that was exclusive to the Labour Party. I think it was a wish list that we all wanted that, but it seemed that they didn't like Boris. They prefer Rishi. Rishi, you saw him and the bromance between him and Macron. So it looks like that's why we're getting better cooperation.
But imagine if you were the mayor of Dieppe or the mayor of Pas-de-Calais or Marc-en-Brule or somewhere like that, and you got 2,000 people living in a ghastly hellhole, you know, on the beach there. Are you going to say, yes, we will address this issue, we will sort this out, no trouble at all? Yep. Or would we say, you know, on the boats, can we help you on?
Well, obviously they want them to get on the boats. They don't want them to.
So do you think, is there any evidence that any of those people in the jungles has ever been sent back from France to another country?
No,
because
probably,
I can't see any data. Yet why on earth aren't they being sent back?
Because the French are punishing us for leaving the EU.
That's a bit simplistic.
No, well, it is a little bit simplistic, but it's like when you look at the, in terms of when you arrive in other countries, you go through customs and everything and all the airports. We allow people from the EU to go straight through. They're all punishing us in their extremely small-minded way by making us queue up with all the other international arrivals. It's petty-mindedness. But the thing is, why are people coming to the UK and not staying in France? It's because it's made totally inhospitable in France for them. They're not putting them up in hotels. I've moved into this apartment recently, and apparently Camden is a no-car zone, which means you can't be given a permit if you've got a car in Camden. So I thought, right, I'll park in the local hotel, and they said that was fine. They said, but we must tell you that it's just been taken over by a private company, and it's 100%, this is in Hampstead, it's 100% full of refugees, Albanian refugees. They just wanted to make you aware. So France aren't doing that.
No,
are they?
Nobody's doing that.
No.
I don't know why we're doing this. Why are we doing this, Peter? It seems very nonsensical. We're housing people in hotels. Some of them you've seen. Some
really nice hotels.
Some stately homes that were up for grabs as well. We can't, as people here in this country, afford to do that. We've got a cost of living crisis. Some people often say, "Oh, but they're getting only £30 a day or £30 a week, sort of thing." But then you've got no bills, you've got no cost of food, you've got no.
And they're going into a lot of people are going into not all people, obviously. I don't want to make generalisations, but there is a large amount. It's been well reported are going into illegal activities. So you don't necessarily need your 30 quid a day or whatever it is a week.
Well, it's probably excess, though. Some of us don't come out with 30 quid profit a day.
No, certainly not.
I mean, you know, are we speaking nonsense?
Block booking hotels is not the answer, and I think that's actually bad for everyone. It's short-termist, which perhaps typifies a government, and I don't want to make everything party political, but it perhaps typifies a government that's been reluctant to have a long-term solution on this. But block booking hotels is expensive. It's not good for taxpayers, but actually it's not good for the poor souls who've come across, because if you've come across, and regardless of the pull factors, crossing the channel on a boat in darkness in the winter would be a terrifying experience. Some people are bringing their children.
So why do it?
Why don't they jump on a plane?
Why do it?
So, but a hotel is not going to deal with the health needs or the emotional needs or the economic needs of anyone who's done that journey.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they obviously have processing sort of centre type things, and there are people who clock them in, and they do.
Well, there is
have
advice
health
there,
checks
but
and stuff.
I discovered,
So they, you know, for those who don't abscond.
Something absolutely extraordinary at a food bank. I was talking to some people in the food bank this week. They said they've got a real problem with disposable nappies. And I said, what do you mean, you're not getting enough? They said, no, people are coming up and taking them and then reselling them. And these are people who haven't got children.
That's terrible.
And so now, I mean, you know, on the one hand...
you have to get a voucher to go to a food
Yes,
bank
but
to show
not to
your
say what... Yeah, but you
Lots
don't...
of people. Oh, I see.
No,
Right,
you can...
people without children.
When I was an MP, I'd give somebody the voucher to go, but I didn't say prove that you've got children. But the point being, on the one hand, I can imagine some people might say, that's a marvellous entrepreneurial spirit, coming in and nicking nappies and flogging them off. On the other hand, it says to me that we've got a system that is not fit for purpose.
Well, the whole thing is open to abuse. Even the food bank saying the whole way we've got people in hotels, I mean, that's just unacceptable. I suggested the cruise ships, and then a couple of weeks later, Suella Braverman said it.
You floated the idea, didn't you?
Did you float the idea? Cruise ships are a good idea.
No, it is a good idea.
Did it harbour?
Somebody pointed out there that if you do that, then they might set fire to the ship, and then people will jump over.
But you could say that about the hotel.
You could say that about anything. So I think there's a good idea.
Happened.
I mean, what do you think? Peter, what do you think about the idea of cruise ships and staying on cruise ships?
That's what they're doing in Scotland at the moment. Yeah.
Well, my criticism of the government was a hotel is temporary. Well, putting someone on a cruise ship is even more temporary. And if the goal is that you assimilate people into British life and give them a chance to work, well, they can't do that stuck in the middle of the ocean.
But we're supposed to be discouraging people from coming over as economic migrants, aren't we?
Come in. You want them to go. You don't want them to come in that
We're not
way.
talking about refugees. We're talking about economic migrants primarily, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that there's different routes to come into this country. People say, I mean,
you can fly from Albania.
We've got loads more to discuss.
I was going to say, I always weep when
Close your mouth. It works really well.
Happy New Year to you too.
I'm sorry, you can still talk. If you just joined me, welcome on board. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, after the break, we'll be discussing whether we're at the tipping point for climate change. And I want to hear what you think, as ever. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think. You can also tweet me at GBNews. I've got a poll up right now asking you the question with regard to climate change. But first, let's get your weather.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess I've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Just coming up to 23 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget as well, you can also stream us live on YouTube. Right, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. We were discussing all about the old migrant crisis. Darryl says, last time I looked, we had a Royal Navy equipped with troop ships, landing craft and ships able to take through the stern. Who needs hotel rooms, cruise ships? It's about time someone grew a pair and stopped these illegal immigrants mid-channel, took photos, fingerprints and DNA swabs before returning them back to the nearest French beach. Jill, however, says, how can the government solve anything when they are on holiday more than the schools, whilst the rest of the public, British public, work throughout the country, keeping things moving? Shame on the government as they have highlighted who actually keeps this country functioning, the British people. I know, how many holidays do these people
They
need?
work on a private school system, that's why.
They work on the harvest system. They close down so they can help with the harvest.
No, it's the grouse shooting season, that's why.
Grace.
That's exactly the same as public schools.
No,
right.
Grace.
Isn't it?
Is it the Grice?
Grace.
Whatever.
Okay.
Right, well, let's get into the great British debate this hour. And I'm asking, are we at tipping point with climate change? The environment editor of The Guardian, Damien Carrington, wrote in his review of 2022 that we are another mile on the highway to climate hell. Lewis is laughing.
Was that really in The Guardian?
Yeah,
it must be true.
Hell surprise.
Well, as usual, the current situation was described as a global crisis.
Oh, another one.
And it seems from his words that we'll be wiped out very soon if we don't take immediate action.
Fair point.
Maybe they go for him first. The Met Office has confirmed that 2022 was the hottest year on record for the UK by value of the average yearly temperatures. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are we at tipping point for climate change? Right, I'm joined now by Senior Lecturer in Sustainable Construction and Climate Change, John Grant. John, welcome. Well, listen, we're on a knife edge, that's what you're saying. We're at tipping point, we're going to hell in a handcart. What do you make? Because this is apparently the hottest year since records began. Why is that the case, and what are we using to measure it by?
Well, I mean, it's not a surprise that we've been talking about this for 30-odd years, and people have been laughing it off because, obviously, planetary systems, they take quite a while to change. But once they get moving, that momentum kind of continues as well. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that, you know, the laws of physics say that as you keep increasing the amount of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and the knock-on effects of water vapor and all of that, that we're experiencing a much warmer world. And, you know, our summers going through, I mean, the most recent summer was sort of exemplified this. But not only the summer, you know, in November, although I think most of us have forgotten it because it was so cold in the latter part, you know, we were at 21 degrees on Remembrance Sunday in Wales, parts of Wales. It's very warm, but we've got this flickering effect as well, where we experience it really cold. Look at America, that's dragged down all of this Arctic air over it. And, you know, we could theoretically have a similar experience over here. This has all been predicted, and it's just, unfortunately, that you know, that statement from The Guardian is that, you know, we ignore this at our peril.
But I mean, okay, so I mean, do you remember the summer before this one? I mean, that wasn't so great, was it? And obviously, the way, I mean, and some winters are hotter than others. I mean, how long have these records been going on for? Because I think if you look at the global, the Earth and the world as a larger thing, haven't we gone up through these peaks and troughs throughout existence of the planet?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The planet is always changing, and that is often given as a reason why we should ignore the current shift. But what you need to put into that is the speed of the change and previous extremes that we are aware of. So it was a little bit warmer in the medieval times around Europe, but not across the world. And the thing is that over the last 10,000 years or so, we have been relatively stable, about 1 degree warmer or 1 degree cooler than an average. Now, what we've got at the moment is that we're at 1.2, over 1.2 as an average, remember. So there are parts of the world that are significantly warmer and other parts that are cooler or stable. But this speed of change, it is this speed of change that we're experiencing that we really haven't seen in the geological record. And that's where, you know, the concern comes from the scientists. It's not that the world is changing. Yes, the world could change. It is the fact that we are pushing this with our accelerator firmly on that pedal going down this road, and we're doing it very rapidly. And that gives us a real challenge to adapt to this changing world. And, you know, and this flickering of extreme heat and extreme cold.
I think the word that you said there is adapt, isn't it? John, the word you said there is adapt. Yeah, is adapt to the change. Not necessarily try and stop it, because I don't know how much power we really genuinely have to stop something that is changing, which would be changing anyway, but you're saying it's changing quicker than it would normally. And you also said, since previous records that we are aware of course, that is that we don't really have we don't really know, do we? And is climate actually something that you can realistically predict? Is the planet not something just like someone's mood? You can't really tell what it's going to do. There's a feedback to it. What you do might make it do something different. So with us changing the amount of CO2 and stuff might encourage something different, which could be worse. Is there any, in your modelling, is there anything that factors in if the planet doesn't do what we're expecting it to do?
Of course. I mean, these are people's entire lives spent studying the output of the sun, the position of the planet around that. We know what the background should be because we play these models backwards first before projecting them forwards to see whether they, when you run them, whether they get it right in the past. These are not, it's not just somebody sort of like going, oh, what? I think it's going to get a bit warmer because there's a bit more CO2 in there.
No, but nobody's saying that. But listen, you saw the modelling with COVID, right? Can I just, okay, John, just bring you back to the modelling for COVID. They did all the things that we're supposed to put in and did this, and it was way off. It was way off track. What if, is there any modelling that you've got in there that suggests what if it isn't CO2? Is there any other suggestions, or are we just pumping in one specific objective? Because there might be, just like with diesel, we thought, oh, you can't have diesel's wonderful, it's amazing. We hadn't worked out that nitrous oxide was an issue, and then we realised it later. So what I'm saying is, have we modelled it and tried other things that could be affecting the planet rather than just CO2?
Yes, and the scientists are publishing on that. And the problem is that the politicians, they want an easy solution. And I get why they want an easy solution. They want to say, right, well, what's the one thing? When I get put on shows like this, I often get asked, John, what's the one thing we can do to stop climate change? And there isn't one thing.
So what's the point then? So if there isn't one thing,
series of things, and the solution will be a whole series of responses too.
So one of them you're saying is to reduce CO2. What would another thing be then for climate change? What's the next?
We need to get a handle on the methane emissions that are spiking at the moment, and also get that feedback understood about how the ice is melting in both Antarctica, which is at a catastrophic loss at the moment, and the thinning of the ice in the Arctic, which we've been measuring now for decades. And it is a real concern that once I think you started this by talking about tipping points, and the idea is that the world wants to stay stable. I want it to stay stable.
But why?
The people that are sitting either side of you do. But perhaps we could reach a point where we tip over that, and surely we have to play it safe.
But perhaps, just suppose it, that the Earth creates its own homeostasis, so its own balance. So just like if I said I'm going to go on a detox, which is not a detox, by the way, it's very bad for you, what your body does is then sort of tries to level everything out, and bring in different... What makes you think that the Earth is not creating its own homeostasis in another way? And by you putting something in, it's a bit like putting a valve in a heart when they do that, and then they've realised that actually it creates other issues because the body starts to help itself and sort of balance itself out. What makes you think that if we do that, we'll that we got the balance wrong?
Well, yes, it is without a doubt one of the most complex scientific strategies and investigations that we've ever undertaken. But as I said right at the beginning here, the Earth over the last 10,000 years has been extraordinarily stable. Prior to that, it's been warmer, colder, more CO2, less CO2. And it was very dynamic, and we know that. And what we could do is push ourselves out of this very stable situation because it is extraordinarily unlikely for us to be this stable for 10,000 years.
Well, listen, John, I'm running out of time.
And if we go out of
John, I'm running out of time. I could talk to you about this forever. We would never agree. But it's really, really good to talk to you.
Agree or disagree. We're both in that situation. It's whether you accept that we can be pushed out of this.
I think that the Earth itself could find its own balance. And I suspect that what we could do could
whether humans can live in that new balance. That's my concern.
But maybe we're not meant to.
5 degrees warmer now.
But maybe we could never change it. John, look, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me. That is, of course, John Grant, who's a senior lecturer in sustainable construction and climate change from Sheffield Hallam University. Well, if you've just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are we at tipping point of climate change? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and director of Car 26, Lois Perry, former editor of the Labour List, Peter Edwards, and also former Labour MP, Stephen Pound. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
(3:33). I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the UK in 2022. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021, when more than 28,000 migrants crossed over. The last crossings took place on Christmas Day, with 90 people making the journey from France on 2 small boats. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to introduce laws this year, making it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican. Pope Benedict XVI died yesterday within Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He'll lie in state there for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the nation, including in central London, where a crowd of more than 100,000 gathered to watch the New Year fireworks display. Well, London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which is the first since the start of the pandemic, was the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen. It also highlighted the Lioness's Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. From today, more than 4,600 bus routes across England will have fares capped at £2 for a single trip. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined the scheme, which will last until the end of March. The cap is being paid for with a £60 million government fund. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Back to Nana in just a moment.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So good afternoon. If you just joined me, welcome on board. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now, before the break, we were discussing whether, with regard to climate change, I was speaking to some experts. We returned to that great British debate, and I was asking, are we at the tipping point of climate change? Because, of course, there have been droughts. We've had the hosepipe ban, the hottest days on record, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was so cold. I hate a bad summer. According to the Met Office earlier this year, to some of the coldest nights a few weeks ago. It seems we are, as The Guardian says, another mile on the highway to climate hell. That is what people are saying. But are we? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts. Andy says, we are long past the tipping point for the climate. It is all downhill from now. All we can do is slow it down. But is there enough time? Doubtful, unless we get India, China and Russia on board right now. Stephen says climate change is happening and will continue regardless of what we do. The cycle has happened before. Climate alarmists are just making money out of foolishness. We're fools to be listening. Ben says year on year and more alarmism. Well, let's see what my panel think of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and director of Car 26, Lois Perry, former editor of The Labour List, Peter Edwards, and also former MP Stephen Pound. Lois Perry, I'm going to come straight to you. She was chomping at the bit as I was speaking to John Grant with regard to that.
There were so many things. I was actually... Did you see me pinching my hand to actually see? Right, OK, so first of all, I'd like to say it's probably news to the hippopotamuses that lived in the Thames 10,000 years ago that it was the hottest summer on record last year. Secondly, it has been much warmer, not a little bit warmer, but much warmer during the Roman period and the medieval period, which that whole thing about it being really, you know, stable for the last 10,000 years is complete nonsense. I do agree we're at a tipping point, but you know what that tipping point is? It's a tipping point of people using climate alarmism and CO2 stuff to actually control us, doing these zones where we can't leave our homes in 15-minute cities, getting us out of our cars, keeping us in our pods, keeping us controlled, stopping us flying, the plebs flying, like Boris Johnson's dad said recently. That's what we're at a tipping point of. We're at a tipping point of government having complete control over our lives, using CO2 and using climate alarmism as the reason for it. Because CO2 is life. It is life, which means if it's net zero CO2, then it means net zero life. It means you and me, all of us, in our pods, at home, on permanent lockdown.
Well, you pointed out, and I don't know how, you know, I don't know much about this particular thing, but this Clintel org thing where loads of people signed, I don't know how reputable the scientists are, but it is a different view. So I'm going to say...
The guy who headed it up has won a Nobel Prize.
Well, OK, so this is a different view. So we've listened to John Grant, and I respect his opinion, but these guys are saying that what comes out with the modelling, the way the modelling has been done, so the computer models are human-made, so we've made the model, not us, obviously, we're not clever enough, and what comes out is fully dependent on what theoreticians and programmers have actually put in. So the hypotheses that they put in, the relationships, all the stability constraints, all the things that they put in to come out with their conclusions. So unfortunately, it says here in mainstream climate science, most of this input is undeclared. So we don't know what the scientists are actually putting in to come out with the CO2. Now, I am not saying that climate change does not exist. I am saying that I just want to know more. I want the politics to be taken out of it, and I want straightforward answers, and I'm sick and tired of what feels like people making money. What do you think, Peter?
Well, I want to come back to what Lois said, because, I mean, I feel that's just a conspiracy theory. And
oh, no, that's just a way of shutting someone down
No, hang on. That's what he thinks. He's entitled to that. Carry on.
OK, but the wording...
No, that's what he thinks.
I apologise.
Sorry, carry on.
It's all right. No need to apologise. We're all friendly. But, no, I think it's a conspiracy theory because I think one can have a view on climate change and we can disagree on that, and one can have a view on whether it's man-made and woman-made and man-made, and I happen to think that it is. But I don't know of any evidence that the government or any government wants to keep us locked in our house with climate change used as a pretext.
Well, the evidence is absolutely everywhere because everything that's being done to restrict our personal mobility is being done in the name of saving the planet. Like these zones in Oxford, have you heard about that? The 15-minute zones where you can't travel from one place to the other. You have to go all around the outside of the city, and it's being rolled out across the whole of the United Kingdom. And the climate change argument is being used as the excuse to keep us out of our cars, at home. Do you know what? If you can't
Let Peter respond to that, because you've had a bit, Peter. Please respond.
I'm happy to weigh my turn. So let's go to London, a city where I live and I know a bit more about. Within the last 5 years, we had air quality named on a child's death certificate for the first time. Now, it's obviously, air quality now is a separate issue to climate change over the next 100 or 500 years. But if we're talking about cars and restrictions on personal mobility, I don't think there are any, by the way, but if we're talking about this in the context of restrictions, we now know, extremely sadly, that air quality has killed a child, and on average, for people in London, children's lungs are about 10% smaller. So there's an argument for 100 years' time, but there's also an argument about now.
But nobody would argue with air quality, and I've met Rosamund as well. She's an incredible woman, and she set up the Ella Foundation, and I absolutely agree that we need to improve the air quality. But there are different things we can do with regard to that.
I think
there's different fuels and things like that that don't actually give emissions and things like that. So we can focus on that.
Cars,
but all I'm thinking of is that the way this whole climate agenda is positioned seems to be costing me and you and everybody a fortune. And if you measure it up, electric cars right now, especially with their carbon footprint to make one, don't appear to be doing much for CO2 levels at all. What do you think, Steve?
I'm glad you mentioned Rosamond, because she was actually honoured in the New Year's Honours list, and she really deserved that honour.
Absolutely.
And I think we're at a very, very serious point. Look, in all honesty, I don't think anyone can deny that the pace of climate change is accelerating.
Well, they can,
and it feeds in particularly to the discussion we had earlier on about immigration. One of the reasons so many people from Mali, Mauritania, Niger, is because of the desertification, because the land is changing and people are coming for. I think what we have to do is the Nana Akua rule here. Everybody thinks you want to do something, but what do you actually do? Now, most of my former constituents will be worried more about 8:30 than 2030, because that would be the issue for them here and now. And I think this is where politicians have actually missed it. It's no good expecting people to act out of the goodness of their heart. By and large, present company accepted, people don't act purely out of the goodness of their heart. You have to actually give them a financial incentive to be less polluting, or to actually incentivise it against it. And I think what's happening in Canterbury and Oxford, we got these small driving zones, it's a democratic attempt. If people don't like it, they can vote it. We had that in Ealing. We had low traffic neighbourhoods in Ealing, and people chose to keep them.
No, because all the parties have the same.
I've got to go to the Great British.
Right, OK, so basically, when you have every political party that signed up to this net zero madness, you cannot vote out people that don't agree with it and vote other people in, because every single party...
You can vote out the traffic zone.
Well, not really.
No, every single party is absolutely backing this up. These people were not consulted. They were not consulted about... They were not consulted about the 15-minute zones, and we have not been consulted as a country about all of the net zero restrictions that are coming in the name of climate change. We haven't. 58% last year wanted a net zero referendum, 62% want one now. British people are not in agreement with this stuff at all.
Right, well, let's find out whether they are or not, because this show's nothing without you at home and your views. So let's welcome our great British voice. Let's go to Grimsby. Let's have a chat with Alan McNeely. Hey, Al, what do you think? This... are we at the tipping point? This is what The Guardian says. This little article in there talks about what is it, climate hell or something? I think
highway to hell. Highway to climate hell.
Highway to climate hell, Al. What do you think?
Understated as ever.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
The whole concept gets lost in this idea that everything's dependent upon the CO2 levels. As I understand it, as the planet warms up, the CO2 levels will naturally increase anyway, so there's a natural link between the two. And we're all focused on the emissions, whereas, as Lois said rightly, it's that CO2 gets sucked in by the trees give out oxygen, we can all breathe. So in theory, we should be heading for a greener planet. The point what tends to happen then is that the whole argument gets lost in, for instance, electric cars or something like that. There's been great deforestation across the world for many, many years, so planting lots of trees, great thing to do. We're supposed to have a scheme here, and the Queen backed one to plant a tree, and help the climate. But to me, the whole argument is just lost on one point and not broadened out enough, if that makes sense to you. I don't agree that we're on a highway to hell. I think that's absolutely nonsense. I just think it's total scaremongering. I think there's lots that we could do to help improve the planet and to help improve the environment, but I don't think it's a road to disaster that we're currently heading down.
Alan McNeely so succinctly said. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. Lovely to talk to you in the new year.
Happy New Year, Nana.
Thank you, Al. See you soon.
Was Highway to Hell a Meatloaf song?
No, Chris Rea.
Oh, Chris...
That was a road to hell.
I thought...
it's the same thing.
Well, same thing.
Driving home for Christmas, was it?
It's a highway to
Driving
dystopia.
home to Christmas on the highway to hell.
Let's get on to soft rock.
Something says AC/DC, I think it was.
Respect.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I was a DJ.
What about a bit
A DJ.
What about a bit of Steppenwolf?
No, I don't think I was alive then. Right, if you just... You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. On
Self-esteem.
Online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll find out why, even though we're a nation of animal lovers, the number of pets being abandoned is on the increase. All of that after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
It's 53 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, the good people of Scarborough gave up their New Year's fireworks last night, all because of a walrus. Nicknamed Thor, the Arctic walrus appears to be taking a break from its journey north. The fireworks were cancelled to avoid causing Thor any distress. But are we really such a nation of animal lovers? Animal rescue centres across the country are reporting an increase in pets being left outside their doors. Staff say rising demand for their services is being because of rising costs of keeping a pet. Head of Companion Animals team at the RSPCA, Sam Gaines, joins me now. So, Sam, thank you very much for joining me. My friend has a couple of dogs and one of them absolutely despises me. I don't know why. Animals don't really like me much. I've always wanted a pet, but it's never really worked out. But according to what you've witnessed in your work, how has the cost of living crisis affected people? Because it sounds like people are just ditching their pets.
Hello, hi, Happy New Year. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we are seeing a very, very difficult time at the moment in terms of the cost of living crisis. And I think this is very much being coupled with what was also a very difficult time during the pandemic as well. And charities have for a long, long time been bracing themselves for an influx of pets coming into our centres. And sadly, we now are starting to see that. And I think it's a very, very difficult situation because you mentioned as a part of your introduction that we are a nation of pet lovers, and absolutely we are. And what we're seeing is some people being faced with incredibly difficult decisions around what actually is best to do for their pet. And they're making decisions, for example, should they eat themselves or feed their pet? What if their pet needs veterinary treatment? What impact is that having on their current income? And people making decisions around treating their pets over actually feeding themselves. So we're seeing incredibly difficult decisions for the really good owners of our pets in the UK. But sadly, what we're also seeing as well is, as you say, an increase in pets being abandoned. And we've seen a 25% increase in pets being abandoned this year. So it is a hugely concerning time for everybody that's involved in the charity sector at the moment.
Yeah, do you have any pets, Sam? Do you have pets?
I do, yes.
What have you
Yes,
got?
I have an 8-year-old Bichon Frise called Florence. She's an RSPCA rescue, so.
Yeah, but I hear that a lot of people are ditching things like reptiles as well. It's not just like the nice little things that you've described. People ditching reptiles and all sorts of other things that they've bought. Is that true?
Yeah, we are seeing an abandonment across a range of different species. So as you mentioned, we are seeing people that have been affected by, for example, an increase in energy prices, which is impacting upon their ability for animals like you've described, snakes, geckos, lizards, those types of animals that do need to have heating, special lights. We've also very sadly heard a story very recently of a gentleman who had to make a choice between actually keeping a pond of fish and actually feeding himself due to an increased cost for his electricity bills. So, we are seeing not just the typical animals that we expect to be abandoned, so cats and dogs, but also a whole range of different animals. And for the RSPCA and the rest of the sector, we're seeing a huge increase actually in rabbits being abandoned as well. So there's clearly a lot of people out there that are really, really struggling at the moment. But what we would say to them is that to reach out and to ask for help. The RSPCA has themselves put aside £1.5 million to actually help people get through this crisis, whether that's pet owners who are struggling or whether it's actually the smaller charities. We are here to help, and so we would urge people, if they are struggling, to ask. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel like you're going to be judged. These are incredibly difficult times, and we are here to help people.
Well, listen, Sam, thank you so much. That's Sam Gaines. She's head of companion animals team at the RSPCA. Good to talk to her all. Joining me, of course, this afternoon is my panel, Lois, Perry, Peter Edwards, and also, who are you?
I'm your greatest fan.
Stephen Pound.
Right. do you know,
slightly creepy.
I couldn't remember. I like to have a fan.
Listening to that, my dad told me that in 1939, when war was declared and he was just going off to fight, the government actually encouraged vets to put animals to sleep. People used to bring their pets in because...
The WEF is encouraging everyone to put their pets down.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
really?
I don't want to make...
Sure? Where did you hear that?
It was on one of their little videos that they do
that.
put out on Twitter. Yeah, they're encouraging that everyone kills their pets. And of course, they did that in China.
The WEF?
Yeah, the World Economic Forum little videos they put out on Twitter.
Well,
I'll send it to you.
Well, I mean, look, I haven't seen that, so I can't verify.
Can I just... I don't want to make Lois's head explode, but until very, very recently, you had to have a dog licence. You couldn't own a dog without having a licence.
Probably a very good idea.
Would actually... Well, we're not going to agree on that, are we? The parkies actually say, have you got a licence? So people used to have to think before they had a dog. I think the problem is, and what I hate round my way in West London, a lot of these handbag dogs, and these aren't real dogs.
There's
they're bred.
I'm sorry. The big scary ones that I'm worried about.
No, they're bred. Well,
no.
But it's Edwina Curry suing her next-door neighbour.
Peter, do you have any animals?
Well, I was keeping quiet, so I've never had a pet, but it's very interesting to hear the guests from the RSPCA lay out the issues and have it related so starkly to cost of living crisis. Now, I think it don't want to make everything party political. What I just say is I think you need action across, if households are going to keep a pet, across a range of areas, transport, energy, food costs, so on and so on. This is not a crisis that comes out of nowhere. We need government action. But I'd say to pet owners, if the financial toll is too much for you, at least take your animal to a refuge. Don't just drop them in the street.
Well, listen, I just want to also say that the WEF did not say slaughter your pets at all. Just and that sources from Reuters.
You've just saved us a really big...
No, because
if I find the video, can I send it?
No, because if somebody comes out with a statistic, especially one of my panellists, I do always like to check to make sure that there is a source that's actually confirmed that. And so far as I know, that's a Reuters source.
I'll send it to you.
That isn't the case.
OK.
So anyway, I can't have pets. Pets hate me. My friend, they've got like they've got a black and white dog, and then they had a little white and brown dog.
I can't
and
believe
the little
that.
one, the little one that's black and white, it literally, the other one goes, the other one literally goes for me. It's a tiny little dog that wants to jump to my neck and just...
I think there's something... I can't believe that. Because, but look, I hate cats. Cats are murderous, bloodthirsty carnivores.
No, they're not.
Cats.
The world would be...
On that bombshell, I can't have you talk about cats.
No, don't let them talk about cats like that.
I'm not a cat person, I'm not a dog person, none of them like me.
I am
a cat
person.
Join me, welcome. This is GB News, online, on TV and on digital radio. Stay with me, there's so much more to come in the next hour. Don't forget as well, download the GB News app where you can watch this programme live. So it has just gone 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Now, for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican this morning. Pope Benedict XVI died within the Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He'll lie in state there for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the nation, including in central London, where a crowd of more than 100,000 gathered to watch the New Year fireworks display. London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which is the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth. It also highlighted the Lionesses' Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. But it was a much quieter affair in Scarborough, thanks to Thor. He's the Arctic walrus. The Yorkshire County cancelled its New Year fireworks display to avoid causing him any distress. He was spotted in the town's harbour, and it's thought to be the first one ever seen in the county. He's since moved on, and experts say he was likely just taking a short break before the long journey north. Well, in his New Year message to Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes the war with Russia will end this year. He spoke as missiles rained down in and around the capital Kyiv. Ukraine's armed forces say Russia has launched more than 31 missiles and 12 airstrikes at targets across the country overnight. Curfews ranging from 7 p.m. to midnight made celebrations for the start of the new year impossible in public spaces. The Archbishop of Canterbury is urging the government to tackle what he calls the country's broken social care system. Justin Welby used his New Year message to say care homes are struggling to cover energy bills and retain staff. He's called on everyone to rise to the challenge of repairing the present system. The government says social care was made a priority in last month's autumn budget, pledging £7.5 billion in support over the next 2 years. 2 men have been charged with the murder of a non-league footballer who was stabbed to death in Birmingham on Boxing Day. 23-year-old Cody Fisher was attacked at a nightclub in Digbeth. 21-year-old Cammy Carpenter and 22-year-old Remy Gordon will appear before magistrates on Monday. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the United Kingdom in 2022. The last crossings took place on Christmas Day, when 90 people made the journey from France on 2 small boats. It brings the total number for the year to 45,756. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021, when more than 28,000 migrants crossed. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to bring in laws this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. From today, more than 4,600 bus routes across England will have fares capped at £2 for a single trip. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined the scheme, which will last until the end of March. The cap is being paid for with a £60 million government fund. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Nana.
It's fast approaching 5 minutes after 4 o'clock. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Well, we started the new year with a punch. Pardon the pun. The World Boxing Council's Mexican President Mauricio Suleiman said that transgender athletes may have their space in 2023. In other words, in boxing, as far as the Mexican governing body is concerned, Trans women, basically men, cannot compete against women and vice versa, and will be given their own category. I actually want to laugh that that would have even been considered acceptable as an option if it wasn't so serious. It is beyond question that a man should never be put in a boxing ring and be allowed to knock 7 bells out of a woman. Absolute madness. And I can't see a trans man, so basically a woman, opting to fight a man. Show me a current case where that has happened. Women aren't that stupid. Mauricio said, "We will make a global call for those who are interested in 2023, and we will establish the protocols, start the consultation, and probably create a league and a tournament. It is a time to do this, and we are doing it for safety and inclusion." What took them so long? Clearly, the majority of men are physically stronger than women. I'm at a loss to understand why what is blatantly obvious to me as a woman, and so far every single person, maybe apart from Nicola Sturgeon, that a trans woman should never compete against a woman in physical sports. It is totally unfair on women and will destroy women's sport altogether. What warped sense of reality exists for anyone to think otherwise? I've always said, of course, people who are trans should be allowed to do sport. Why on earth not? But I also said, to make things fairer, they should have their own category. Remember trans woman athlete Leah Thomas? It was absurd that she, I'm polite, I am using her requested gender pronoun, should be allowed to compete against women for obvious reasons. She's biologically a man and has all the physical advantages of that. I don't even subscribe to the notion that once the testosterone levels are down, that trans women should compete against women, because that is not the only advantage. Take the case of transgender woman MMA fighter Fallon Fox beat her female opponent, Tamika Brett, so severely that Tamika suffered a broken skull and fractured the orbital bone inside it. The fight lasted just over 2 minutes. What gets me is that we women are fighting for what is obvious. A man will never be a biological woman, and a woman will never be a biological man. It actually pains me that I have to concede using the word biological before my gender, so muddied as the waters. But it's the truth. Nicola, with her gender reform bill, doesn't help, paving the way for more gender confusion quicker, opening the floodgates for absolutely anybody, not just the trans community, to change gender legally without any medical diagnosis. Why would it be a bad thing for checks and balances to be put in place to ensure the health of those wishing to change gender and the safety of those around them? Let's hope that common sense will prevail in 2023. So here's what else is coming up in the next 60 minutes. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should Harry and Meghan be invited to the King's coronation? Harry's book is published on January the 10th, with 2 major television interviews promoting it scheduled for next weekend. His brother, Prince William, is expected to bear the brunt of Harry's wrath. Many have suggested that the accusations in the book will kill the relationship between the brothers completely, if it isn't already dead. So should the Sussexes really expect a coronation invite to land on their doormat? And staying with the royals, we'll also look ahead to the King's coronation on May the 6th. We're told that it'll be a different sort of ceremony from Queen Elizabeth's to reflect the times that we're actually living in. Is it right to maybe take back and spare back the ceremony? Or should we just use it to showcase everything that is great about this country? That's on the way in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel. With me, I've got Lois Perry, who's the director of car26.org, former editor of the Labourist Peter Edwards, and Stephen Pound, former Labour MP. Right, I'm going to start with you, Lois, first, because you are a woman. What do you think?
Biological woman with a womb and everything.
Well, you cis.
Don't say that. That's terrible.
See, I don't like. Why do I have to put biological in front? That really irritates me.
I think this is a good idea. I was saying before, my nan had some physio recently, and the lady that did the physio did female rugby, and she stopped doing it because the amount of women that were getting hospitalised by men who transitioned as adults, and were literally, they were literally putting these poor female rugby players, and I say poor female, they're probably still huge and impressive, they were putting them in hospital because men have 40% more muscle mass. They are stronger. Even if their testosterone levels are lowered or they have surgery, they're still stronger.
So obviously that's your experience and what you've experienced speaking to this woman.
Just that, the interesting thing as well, my trans friends that I've got are such gentle, loving, gorgeous people, and I just think that this whole issue has been weaponised to cause culture war type problems, everyone fighting and hating each other. I don't...
Because it seems so ridiculous to me. There's nothing wrong with being a trans woman or a trans man.
No, but you need to go through the process, the proper process.
But having gone through the process and done everything as you should do, then at that point, there literally is nothing wrong with it. But we have to be realistic about what that means. So if a man becomes a trans woman, we have to accept
he's still
that
really strong.
Has the strength of a man. What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of other sports will be looking at what the World Boxing Council does very closely, because I think sport is for everyone, and so is dignity, but so is safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the head of the WBC saying you can't have someone born as a man fighting someone born as a woman is a pretty common sense point.
It's obvious, isn't it?
Pretty common sense point to make. And I think you cited the example of Leah Thomas, who won a global swimming event. I'm sorry, I can't remember whether it was, I don't think it was Olympics, but which swimming competition. But even post-transition...
European athletics.
Leah Thomas had a big height and probably a weight advantage because she had much broader shoulders.
She also had a penis and a girlfriend.
OK,
yeah.
So we need
I don't know about this. Again, I can't
that might have slowed her down.
I can't clarify that myself, but I think I don't know whether she'd transitioned. I don't know whether she had a girlfriend.
Well, the other swimmers complained that she was getting changed in the changing room, and you could see everything, and it made them feel uncomfortable, and they were just told that they had to shut up. That's what I read.
Well, I find that horrendous. Look, there are strange cases. I mean, Caster Semenya, the South African runner. I mean, they've not been able to define what her sexuality is or his. Her, and there are cases like that.
Yes.
There are people like we mentioned earlier on about Jan Morris and April Ashley, who were demonstrably women born in the wrong body, and it was a corrective one. But I think we're in danger of actually dancing on the head of a pin here, because if we're going to have categories, subcategories, sideways categories, semi-categories, where on earth does it stop?
So put yourself in my position. I'm a woman.
Yeah.
OK, I'm a woman, female rugby player. I'm going to play rugby.
Yeah.
And there's somebody, you as a man, you've transitioned and you are now female.
Depends.
No, but I'm just saying, in terms of strength, though, you have to accept that this is not about. It is not about being transphobic or not.
No.
This has nothing to do with. This is about just the physicality of the anatomy and physiology of the different sexes, and the advantages that one will have in a certain situation in terms of sport.
Enough people get injured in sport as it is already. There's no way on God's green earth that I would want my daughter, anybody. My daughter played rugby at university. To be coming up against a front row forward who had been a man.
Exactly.
That's
all it is.
Can we just start 2023 and by saying let's actually be a little bit sensible about this?
That's what I'm saying.
Stop all this flipping nonsense about subcategories and just say, look, there are certain things which are so bloody obvious.
Pardon the language, sorry.
Oh, I do beg your pardon.
No swearing, please.
Well, that was OK, all right.
It is swearing.
That's why subcategories are a good idea.
Yeah.
Surely, to prevent what you're saying, your daughter being up against a man that's transitioned into a woman and getting really badly hurt.
But are we talking about different leagues then?
No, just
I'm sorry. The logic of different categories is different leagues.
You could have a league of this and that. I mean, you have leagues in football. This is not what we're saying. We're actually talking about whether it is reasonable to have a man, somebody who's maybe trans woman, playing against somebody who is a woman.
Agree, but
what we're saying, we're comparing bodies. We're not comparing. We're saying that these two bodies are different. When it comes to sport, you have to look at them as bodies and acknowledge that there is a difference in strength and physicality, and with that comes is safety. So we need to put safety first.
Weren't you implying that you would actually approve the idea of having a separate transgender league?
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely.
OK, look, at the moment we've got the Premier League, we've got the Women's Premier League. There's no argument about that. Yeah, no.
So I'm
just saying, do you want to have a third, fourth, fifth?
So you'd rather compromise safety?
No, I would say no.
You're saying is not let trans people play at all.
I would say let trans people play by all means, but not in a state of before they've completed transitioned.
But it doesn't matter because they can complete transition, but they've still got the physical bulk of them. Even the most weakling man, and I'm pretty strong, I go to the gym, could probably overpower me. Even like Mr. Muscle, the guy, you know, in the advert and that thing in the 90s, whatever, could probably overpower me, right? But it doesn't make much difference. It's the muscle mass. It doesn't matter how developed it is. Men are stronger than women. They just
To be honest, though, so my money would be on you again. But hang on a sec. But where do you? Are you? Because on the one hand, you're saying, are you denying trans people the right to participate in sport?
No, well, that's why the subcategory I think is a good idea.
Okay, so what sport can a man who was a woman is transitioning? What sport can they participate?
Well, let's ask Peter. What sport? Any sport where physical strength, as in
or no physical contact. Yeah.
What do you think, Peter?
Well, let me make a practical, because one of you mentioned the culture wars, and actually, you know, let's try and start 2023 on where we agree and be positive. So in football and tennis, there's a men's competition, a women's competition.
Exactly.
But in boxing, there's already multiple different categories by weight.
Yes, you're right.
Hold on.
I was agreeing with you.
Okay. So if you can kind of segment a particular sport already, men's boxing, women's boxing, is then divided by weight. Maybe you can divide it in other ways as well. There's never been that need in football or tennis, for example. So on a practical point, maybe there could be another category.
No, I don't see what the harm would be. I think because sport is about comparing bodies, isn't it? It's about one person being stronger than another and putting them into a situation where there's a competition element and to find out who wins that competition. It's not about beating someone senseless because you've got a physical advantage for being a man and you're actually and you're sort of working, sort of competing against a woman.
I mean, it's not just about physical strength. It's about skill. Look at darts. You've now got women are not just competing with men in the world darts. They're actually beating men.
Yeah, but they're not beating them on the head, are they?
Exactly. That's a very good point and a great one to end on. And as with Leah Thomas, we don't know. I mean, Lois was just supposing that. We don't know what the situation was in the changing rooms at all. If you've just joined me, it's coming up to 17 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should Harry and Meghan attend the King's coronation this year? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think. You can also tweet at GB News. Stay tuned. That's on the way after the weather.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold with rain and hail snow over Scotland, showers and bright spells elsewhere. Here's the details. Patchy rain and hail snow will continue to gradually clear to the east, but it will remain mostly cloudy with hill fog lingering in places. A mostly cloudy day to start the new year across Northern Ireland. There will also be some patchy light rain at times. There'll be a mixture of bright and sunny spells along with scattered showers across northwest England. The showers will be heavy and blustery at times. Bright or sunny spells will edge in from the west, although it will stay rather cloudy in the east. There'll be locally heavy blustery showers in the west too. It's a rather cloudy and windy start to the new year across the Midlands. An isolated heavy shower is possible in the west. A mild day for all. Cloudy and overcast conditions will persist across East Anglia with limited bright spells. The odd shower is also possible. Cloud will thicken across southern England with outbreaks of rain edging in from the south, turning heavy at times. Rather windy too, especially along the coast, but feeling mild for all. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. Happy New Year to you all. Let's now talk about Harry and Meghan. I know, look, we should do, because we're talking about the King's coronation. It's more about the King than them, really. Because as well as Prince Harry's upcoming memoir that I think we're going to have to endure, I think it's next week. Is it out next week? Yeah, out next week sometime. It's on the 10th, actually. So in 9 days' time. So that's coming out. The Sussexes, their Netflix documentary, which was one of last year's most streamed programmes. It included multiple charges, including Harry accusing William of screaming and shouting at him, as brothers do, and allegations the palace lied over bullying claims against Meghan. The royal family has not commented on whether the Duke and Duchess are to be invited to the King's coronation. However, multiple polls and even former politicians are questioning whether it's right for the couple to be invited. So I'm joined now by former royal correspondent Michael Cole. Michael, thank you very much for joining me. Michael, so what do you think about this? Because, should they be invited?
Nana, good afternoon and Happy New Year to you and all the viewers. His Majesty the King has handled this rather cleverly, because he's let it be known that they are very welcome to come to the coronation on May the 6th. Now, that leaves it up to them whether to accept, which leaves them open to the charge of hypocrisy after all the criticism and wounding things they've said about the royal family, or if they then refuse, then they could be accused of being petulant and petty-minded. So it is really quite a clever thing for the King to have done. And for Prince Harry, there is an additional problem, Nana, because all the princes present in the Abbey at the coronation will be required to kneel and give a loyal oath. they'll have to swear as liege men of life and limb to be loyal to the new king who has just been crowned. Now, could Prince Harry do that with a straight face, or would he be like those anti-royal MPs who at the start of every parliament, when they have to take the loyal oath in order to take their seat, they cross their fingers behind their back? So I think the king has been playing quite a good innings so far in his reign, and I think he's handled this one quite well.
Wow, so he's going to have to bend down and do this thing. So do you think he'll go? Do you think, I mean, I think that if he's invited, I think he'll probably try and snub his invite. What do you think he would do? Do you think Harry will go if he was invited?
Yeah, maybe that is a reaction, and it's a perfectly respectable one on your part. I actually think he will accept, they will accept, because they're in the business of self-publicity that they have to keep in the public eye. That's all they've got left to them now. They've sold themselves to Netflix, and they have to keep a high profile. There is a problem there because I had never, ever heard a member of the royal family booed until they came to St. Paul's Cathedral for the service in Thanksgiving for the Queen's 70 years unprecedented reign. And there were quite a few boos outside. Now, even in Quebec City, when French separatists demonstrated against the Queen Mother, the late Queen Mother, they didn't boo her. They weren't booing her personally. They were demonstrating because they wanted French separatism in the Canadian Federation. So that is quite unusual. And I think there would be, and the figures you were quoting would indicate that there may be some opposition, which would rather detract from the solemnity and the glory of the occasion. We haven't seen a coronation since 1953. There have been more solar eclipses in the last 200 years than there have been coronations. So this is going to be a special occasion, Nana, and you're going to be there, I'm sure.
Of course, I'll be there with bells on as well. Well, listen, stay right there, Michael, because I'm going to bring in Grant Harold. Now, he's a former royal butler. So, Grant, look, what do you think about this then? I mean, has King Charles played a blinder? Do you think it's a good idea? What's your view? And do you think Harry will go?
Well, good afternoon, Nana. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year. I think he will go because I believe with everything that's taken place, everything that's happened, he obviously feels that they have done no wrong. And I think on that basis, they will still want to be there. Even though I think it'll be really awkward, personally. I would think it'd be quite awkward to be there, but I think he will. And I think the king, as Michael said, he's played it very carefully. You know, he's invited them. Of course, you'd invite him because it's his second son. But the decision's now down to them. And I think the risk is that they do go. People do give a bad reaction to them being there, which is possible.
I think they will. I think people will. I'll have a bad reaction to them, to be fair, because I just think, you know, it's all very well having a disagreement with your family, but the mudslinging, selling your story, and then actually not speaking to your own father because maybe he did something wrong with a picture, which that's not how he tells the story. But then, as a result, you're selling everything, you're doing everything that you said he was doing, and worse. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Now, it's pretty bad. I was going to ask you as well. Sorry, Grant, you go first. Go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's the tricky part, and you know, going along, as I said, I think he will, you know, he'll probably feel he should be there. I think the dangerous part is, Nana, that with the late Queen in recent years, there was always that thing of them overshadowing different things, which is the reality. And I think that's something that the palace will not want that to happen. They will not want anything to put any kind of shadow over this event. So it's going to be very carefully played out over the next couple of months, I think.
Do you think they've got much left to say? Because Prince Harry's book is coming out. I watched the thing. I fell asleep in the middle of that 6-part thing. I'm not going to get those hours back again, but I had to watch it for the sake of work. I mean, do you think, have they got anything left to say? Really? What do you think?
This is what confuses me, because obviously, you know, we all listened at the Oprah interview because we wanted to know what had to be said, and even then I was kind of very much in the fence, as you know, Nana, and then the TV series has come out and you kind of think, okay, a lot of it is repeated. Now the book, and you do kind of think, what are they trying to get across? This is what I'm trying to understand from my own point of view, because knowing him, knowing his father, knowing the family, I don't understand what the end game is. There has to be an end game, and I don't know what he actually wants. I don't know what that end game is. I don't know if he's trying to say that he feels that they've been treated unfairly and wants everybody to know. I don't know if they're trying to get something out of it. That's the bit I don't get. And I question that all the time, thinking, what's the end game? That's what I'm sure everybody's wondering.
I think the end game is money. Let's bring Michael back in quickly for a final chat with him. Michael, so it's interesting that Grant has pointed out the end game. What do you think their end game is? I mean, what could they possibly be after? There's only, they've only got the book left. Now the book's coming. I mean, what do you think where are they going with this?
First of all, good hogmanay to Grant up there in Scotland or wherever he is. We used to live in Scotland. We enjoyed that.
Michael, I love the fact that we're coordinated with our colours, by the way.
Oh, yes, they are.
We didn't talk beforehand, I know. We didn't arrange this. But we can't look as glorious as you, though, Nana, whatever we do, however we coordinate. But let me just say, it's Tuesday week the book comes out. Penguin Random House will obviously want to avoid the charge that they've oversold it, because people will feel cheated if there is not something new in it. And have they fired all their ammunition in those 6 agonizing, excruciating programs to which you have referred so eloquently? We'll have to see. But their fate is one which I don't think is enviable. They are now going to live in their hilltop fortress in California. That is their life. They have sold themselves to Hollywood celebrity. And celebrity fades very quickly. The Americans always want the next big thing. That's what they're interested in. This country, Britain, is the home for nostalgia. We've cherished the people who've been around a long time. We like them. We call them national treasures. Now, they've sacrificed all that. And they're really riding on a tiger. They've got to keep going. And I'm afraid it's a bit threadbare now, rubbishing your own family. It doesn't look good. No. It doesn't smell right. No. It's a terrible thing in life to see 2 brothers fighting. Doesn't matter who the brothers are. It's terrible. But when it's princes of the royal blood fighting, and I do understand this book will be drawing some blood, and there will be attacks on Prince William, which perhaps we haven't seen before. Well, but when that happens, I think it's regrettable, it's very sad, and I'll tell you what, Nana, it's all unnecessary, because all these complaints, when you look at it in the great scheme of things, with a war raging 2 time zones away from here, it's all terribly trivial.
It is totally trivial, Michael. And on that bombshell, Michael Cole, thank you very much for joining me, and also Grant Harold, thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you. Well, see, that's what they think. What do you think? Get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me at GBNews. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. After the break, we will continue with the Great British Debate, and I'm asking, should Harry and Meghan attend the King's coronation this year? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Lewis Perry, Peter Edwards, and also Stephen Pound. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
(4). Here's the latest. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican this morning. Pope Benedict XVI died within Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He'll lie in state for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the country, with more than 100,000 people gathering in central London to watch the fireworks. London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which was the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen. It also highlighted the Lionesses' Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the United Kingdom last year. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021. The last crossings of 2022 took place on Christmas Day, when 90 people made the journey from France on 2 small boats. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has promised to bring in laws this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. From today, more than 4,600 bus routes across England will have fares capped at £2 for a single trip. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined the scheme, which will last until the end of March. The cap is being paid for with a £60 million government fund. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Back to Nana in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you've just joined me, where have you been? I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Right, well, we're talking about not Harry and Meghan specifically, but about whether they're going to be coming to the coronation. They have been invited. Let's see what you've been saying about this. Right, so firstly, Dan on climate change. He says, to try to get the UK to go to net zero, politicians are prepared to make the general public suffer by introducing unrealistic and unsustainable targets. The middle classes are always who pay the most for taxes with the worst hit. The country is in recession and the government should be trying to help people, not make their lives more difficult by introducing policies that are costly and unsustainable. Frank on the transports says it's simple. Just have 2 categories. chose women and open. Problem solved and fair to all. That is true, actually, because no woman's going to go in a women and men category. And Carla, on Harry and Meghan, attending King Charles's coronation, says they don't want anything to do with the monarchy, so I assume they would not want to attend, but Charles would take the moral high ground and send an invite. I wonder. So what do you think? So should Charles do as Carla says and send an invite? It wasn't that long ago Harry and Meghan's bombshell documentary aired on Netflix with fresh accusations against the royal family. Plus, it's only 10 days until Prince Harry's brand new book is released. I hear it's actually on half price for pre-order. So should they come to the coronation? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined now by broadcaster and director of Car 26, Lewis Perry, former editor of the Labour list, Peter Edwards, and also former Labour MP Stephen Pound. We'll start with you, Peter Edwards. The coronation, should he invite them and should they go?
Yes, of course he should, and they should go. All families have disagreements and all families go through tough times. I think the idea that you air those publicly has not really been helpful to anyone, but if ever there's a way to show an olive branch or trigger a reconciliation, it's to invite them. So it seems entirely sensible and they should accept.
Lois?
Yeah, I think that the king inviting them is, using a chess analogy, is check. Because if they don't come, then they look petty. But if they come, then they're going to be shoved at the back, hopefully, and it'll be pretty embarrassing. I think that they should go. They need to go because all they've got, their entire currency, is their connection to the royal family. I actually think that Prince Harry is in a sort of slightly domestic abuse situation with her. I feel for him incredibly. He's not there. He's not there in his eyes, so...
Well, some people would say, because, I mean, obviously, for me, sometimes I don't really like it when people sort of go on and say, oh, well, it's the woman doing that. And I know you're not doing it because it's the woman, but to me, I think it's like a codependency, and I think they're both just as bad as each other, one relying on the other. Stephen?
Well, can I take you back to the summer of 1953?
Please do.
1953, Fulham in the First Division. My sister saw the first banana because rationing was ending, but we had exactly the same problem. Her Majesty the Queen, God rest her soul, was about to be crowned. She had her uncle, Edward VIII, the Duke of Windsor, and who had run off with an American divorcee heiress. You know, there's a kind of... See if there's a read across here. And, you know, my dad used to sing Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Mrs Simpson's pinched our king. So, at that time, the Duke of Windsor, who was, after all, the brother of the Queen's father, you know, and he was, you know, King Edward VIII, was living in Paris, large in it with Mrs Simpson, and they were invited, but they chose to be dignified and not attend. I don't actually see dignity as featuring large in Meghan's vocabulary. No. But I think Peter's so sweet and kind and nice on this. You've got to
But why does it
them.
always look... I'm not a fan of Meghan Markle, but I just think that why does it always sort of seem to fall on her? Prince Harry, is more than capable of making his own decisions. Yes, he is. You don't know. I think, of course he is. And I don't think it's fair. I'm not defending her. I'm just saying that they are both culpable and both equally responsible.
Well, hang on a second. If you look at Harry's background, I mean, we know about he was at school. He had a very, very distinguished military career. You know, he also got up to some pretty outrageous things.
Yes, he dressed up as a Nazi.
Well, and those are parties in
and he made that decision on his own.
But suddenly he changes from this sort of red-blooded laddish, you know, one of the boys, know what I mean, you know, to this sort of frightfully woke.
Yeah, but what man doesn't?
This is my inner voice. You know.
No, when a man meets a woman, that man will change because
she's tapped in to some underlying massive insecurities. The whole thing, even the title of the book, Spare.
Yeah, but he would have listened.
The heir and a spare.
Yeah, but this is apparently his book in his own words, right? So obviously didn't write them. Neither of them, I don't think, are capable of writing a book. Hold on, let me finish. So he's written this book in his own words. He's more than capable of, you know, doing his own thing. And I don't think it's fair that people say, oh, he's in domestic abuse and whatever. I actually think that he has gone there. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Okay.
He is in that situation. He's put himself there, and he now needs to find a way either out or in.
Is it fair to say, though, that she's a much stronger and more focused character than him?
I don't know, because...
Certainly more focused.
No, it depends. I don't know about that, because it depends how bitter he is.
More wokest.
Listen, if he is bitter as he seems, because obviously the book is saying Spare, which gives a lot of clue as to his own insecurities and how he feels, then he's been harbouring that for years, even before she came along.
Yeah, but she's picked the scab off the
she might have picked the scab. She might, maybe, but then he's a prince, and she wanted a prince and all that, and she's obviously been... What do you think, Peter? Are we going down a... The whole of the black hole, or what?
Well, I don't think...
Or have we already gone? We're already in it.
I don't think a domestic abuse analogy is the right one
No, I don't
in these circumstances. I think it is terribly sad. I do think Harry and Meghan have made some poor choices, but I think clearly they're very upset. You know, Harry and William, of course, lost their mother at a young age in horrific circumstances. I don't doubt for a moment that Meghan suffered racism over her life, but I think perhaps they need a wider circle of advisors, because things like making a TV show and a book about your family, it doesn't seem like it will end well. And I feel the rest of the royal family, of course, they have a very gilded life, but they are dedicated to duty.
Yes, right.
I think they're probably dreading the next couple of weeks.
Well, they would be, and I think that's the difference here. What the royal family is to us is a duty, it's a service, and really, frankly, you can see that Meghan did not have it in her to do that service.
But don't you think Meghan's mother is a real star? I mean...
No, I don't. That's the answer to that. Right, well, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great... I've done it again, haven't I? Without even saying close your mouth, you just did it. Let's welcome...
I'm glad we're not fighting in the same weight category.
Let's welcome our great British voices, your opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what you think about the topics we're discussing. Oh, I love this. Let's go to see Lee Harris in Bristol. Hey, Lee, Happy New Year to you.
Do you think Meghan's mother's a star?
Happy New Year, Nana. How are you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you. Now, we'll start with Stephen's question, because he seems to think that Meghan's mum is a star. Do you think she is?
Not really, no. I did laugh when you said that straight away, Nana. I've got to admit, I instantly agreed with you.
So what do you make of this, then, this whole coronation thing? Should he invite them? Should they go?
I read that sources close to the royal family say the king will always keep the door open for his son, and that he'll not want his coronation to be sidetracked by drama. So I completely understand why the king's, if not already, decided to invite them. But let's be honest, it would be outrageous and utterly hypocritical for Meghan and Harry to attend.
Exactly.
After all they've done to attack and undermine the British monarchy and the country. You know, they've accused their own family of racism, Prince William of bullying. They've accused the palace of a briefing operation against them. They've used the global coverage of Netflix to damage them. And Harry's bringing out a book to cause even more damage. You know, if they hate the UK and the monarchy so much, why would they want to come?
No, that is a very good question. And if, just say, they do get here, how do you think, what do you think? Do you think they'll be received well? And are you planning to read his book?
I'm not planning to read the book, no. I mean, I might skim through all of the revelations and stuff, but no, I don't think I'll waste my life reading it. But I'm glad you asked, because I have seen polling, probably like, I think some of it's from GB News polling as well, but the public don't seem too keen on Harry and Meghan. You know, personally, I hope they stay away, because I genuinely do think that it'll take, you know, it'll draw a massive amount of attention away from the royal family, which is not on. You know, this is not just about the royal family. It's about the country. It's about all of us. It's not about Harry and Meghan. But, you know, so personally, I hope they stay away. But if they do attend, I'm not going to be surprised in the slightest if they get booed. I secretly hope they do, Nana.
Of course they will. I'll be leading it. Lee, thank you very much. Lovely to see you. That's Lee Harris. He's there in Bristol. He's our great British voice. Thank you so much. And also to you, because lots of you have been getting in touch with your views on Harry and Meghan. Ellie says, princes who attend the princes. Thank you very much.
Sorry, boss.
Princes who attend the coronation have to swear allegiance to the king, so how would Harry deal with this? For me, I'd prefer that he and his wife did not attend after publicly trashing your own family. Why would anyone want to be there? Maggie says, invited or not, Harry and Meghan will make a production of it. He is the king's son. However, so should he be invited. Claire says Harry and Meghan should definitely not attend the coronation. It is not a family event in the same way as a funeral. It is a ceremony unique to the royal family. Harry and Meghan left. There are far fewer seats this time than at the Queen's coronation. Every seat should go to someone who will support King Charles as he takes on the responsibilities of being a monarch. Those who attend should appreciate the opportunity to witness history. The other two would merely be there to be seen and create stories for Netflix. I think you're right on that one. If you just join me, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll be talking about Prince Harry's new book. We'll carry on with that. And the New Year's honours list. But first, we'll have a break. Back in a moment.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome aboard. If you've just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, of course, the New Year's honours list has been revealed. Now, the list celebrates the Lionesses' victory at the Euros, with 4 members of the England team receiving honours. Some people complaining that actually it should have been all of them, but I agree, only 4, not everybody. GB News presenter Anne Diamond, she received the OBE. Fabulous, well done to Anne. And Queen's guitarist Brian May was awarded a knighthood. Well, who better to delve into this than royal commentator Jenny Bond? She joins me now. Jenny, thank you so much for joining me, and Happy New Year to you. Now, of course, it's New Year's...
You too, yeah. Hope you're well.
I'm good, thank you, Jenny. I'm good, thank you. Now, of course, it's the New Year's honours list. Is it actually still relevant? Do you think people care?
Well, I think people do care, but I'm not sure personally that it's still relevant. For my taste, it's too political. It's decided by Downing Street. People actually seem to think that the royal family has to think, oh, I'll give them or I'll give them. It's not that at all. It's Downing Street who decide who gets the honours. And I think I would bar all politicians from getting any kind of honour. I'm not entirely sure about entertainers. Brian May is fantastic, but Sir Brian May, Sir Mick Jagger, really? I don't know. I'm glad the Lionesses have. So I don't know where you draw the line, but personally, I think perhaps awards for people in the community who've done their bit for society, and then they get their day at the palace. The little people you like, the unrecognised and unknown people. I mean, there's true value perhaps in this kind of recognition, but the rest of it becoming an officer of the British Empire, a commander of the British Empire, doesn't really sit very well, I don't think, with 2023.
Well, if they offered you one, Jenny, would you take it?
They won't.
But if they did,
I didn't.
I know. I would be conflicted. I would be conflicted because obviously it is. It's great for your ego, I suppose. If I did, I certainly wouldn't put it after my name, as some people do. I mean, I think that's preposterous. I probably might politely decline. I'd like to think I would.
Nah, you'd take it, Jenny. I would. I'd be more than happy. I'd say, oh, it's not relevant. They'll be like, oh, thank you very much. No, but yeah, I know what you mean. There are a lot of people. But I do agree, though, that it should be more of the people in the society who have done stuff that should be on there. And I would absolutely agree with you. Why should the MPs get them? And all that business about some peers donating this, that, it just feels a bit uncomfortable for me for them to get them. Now, what about Harry and Meghan? Because they've been invited to should they be invited, to the coronation? Do you think Charles should invite them? And if so, do you think they should go?
Yeah, I'm with the majority of your panel, I think, in that I think they absolutely must be invited and will be invited. I think it is the dignified way for the royal family to proceed, as they have thus far, really ignoring all that's going on, all the dirty laundry that's being washed, and just rising above it and extending the hand of love and friendship to the family. And I think that they will be invited, and I think they'll probably come. I mean, it's almost unthinkable that the king's youngest son should not be at his coronation, one of the most significant moments of Charles's life. So I rather hope that they will be there. I think that people are very harsh about Harry and Meghan, and I know I have been too, but, you know, that they came, well, I think people are, but they came to the Jubilee and they behaved very well. They came to the funeral and didn't try to upstage anyone. I think they could play a relevant and quiet part in the coronation, and I do think they should be there.
Well, I think they needed to go to those things so that they could be bankrolled, because otherwise, what would they talk about? What about anything else? What's going on this year then for the royal family? Are there any events that we should look out for? Obviously, we've got. We could talk about obviously the book's coming. Let's talk about the book briefly, though. What about the book? Are you going to read that?
Well, I mean, that's the first thing. Yeah, I mean, next Tuesday and Wednesday next week, people like me are just going to be, we're going to have 4 hours. We've got to get the book and download it and get it through the post and whatever way you can, and speed read it and then commentate on it and write articles about it. So it's going to be pretty frantic. I hope there's something in it. But I think we'll start hearing about it at the weekend, actually, because I believe Harry is going to give interviews to American networks and to Tom Bradby of ITN, which I'm not sure when they'll be embargoed to, but the stuff's going to start dribbling out next weekend. And then, Tuesday, the book itself. It's probably going to be pretty damaging. I don't know how damaging, though. I mean, you know, Harry loves his father and Charles loves Harry. Harry knows that his father calls him my darling boy, and I think that the worst barbs may be aimed at William, but hopefully not at Charles.
Honestly, I think the word that begins with D that it will be is probably dull. Anything else? Are there any other events that we need to look out for other than the coronation? Is there anything else?
You know, I have spent 30 years on this beat, and I wouldn't like to predict what's going to happen because there's always something extraordinary. I mean, so many times in my life I thought that, there's a quiet period ahead, and Jen, can you get down? Harry's been caught smoking dope, or Diana's done something. There's always something, or Fergie's been found topless. Who knows what's going to happen? Something will, I can guarantee that.
Well, listen, Jenny, you all keep us posted, and please read the book on our behalf, because I'm not going to read it. I don't think any of my panellists will. And then you can just tell us what's in it and whether it's worth a read or not. And maybe there'll be some juicy gossip. Jenny Bond, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
That is Jenny Bond. She's a royal commentator. Crikey. Well, are you going to read the book? I don't think I'll be bothered. I'm just going to get others to read it and then tell me about it, and then we'll tell you about it to save you the bother and also the cost of it. But I know you can get it pre-order half price right now. Well, if you just joined me, welcome aboard. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, loads more. Do not go anywhere. News is on the way next.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold with rain and hail snow over Scotland, showers and bright spells elsewhere. Here's the details. Patchy rain and hill snow will continue to gradually clear to the east, but it will remain mostly cloudy with hill fog lingering in places. A mostly cloudy day to start the new year across Northern Ireland. There will also be some patchy light rain at times. There'll be a mixture of bright and sunny spells along with scattered showers across northwest England. The showers will be heavy and blustery at times. Bright or sunny spells will edge in from the west, although it will stay rather cloudy in the east. There'll be locally heavy blustery showers in the west too. It's a rather cloudy and windy start to the new year across the Midlands. An isolated heavy shower is possible in the west. A mild day for all. Cloudy and overcast conditions will persist across East Anglia with limited bright spells. The odd shower is also possible. Cloud will thicken across southern England with outbreaks of rain edging in from the south, turning heavy at times. Rather windy too, especially along the coast, but feeling mild for all. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
So good afternoon. It has just gone 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. Now for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. And in some breaking news in the last few minutes, police in Brazil say they've detained a man who tried to enter the inauguration of new President Lula da Silva carrying an explosive device and a knife. This is a developing story. We'll bring you more on this as we get it. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican this morning. Pope Benedict XVI died within Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He'll lie in state for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the country, with more than 100,000 people gathering in central London to watch the fireworks. Well, London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which was the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen. It also highlighted the Lionesses' Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. In his New Year message to Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes the war with Russia will end in 2023. He spoke as missiles rained down in and around the capital Kyiv, Ukraine's armed forces saying that Russia launched more than 31 missiles and 12 airstrikes across the country overnight. Curfews ranging from 7 p.m. to midnight made celebrations for the start of the new year impossible in public spaces. The Archbishop of Canterbury is urging the government to tackle what he calls the country's broken social care system. Justin Welby used his New Year message to say care homes are struggling to cover energy bills and retain staff. He's called on everyone to rise to the challenge of repairing the present system. The government says social care was made a priority in last month's autumn budget, pledging £7.5 billion in support over the next 2 years. 2 men have been charged with the murder of a non-league footballer who was stabbed to death in Birmingham on Boxing Day. 23-year-old Cody Fisher was attacked at a nightclub in Digbeth. 21-year-old Cammy Carpenter and 22-year-old Remy Gordon will appear before magistrates on Monday. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the United Kingdom last year. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021. The last crossings of 2022 took place on Christmas Day, when 90 people made the journey from France on 2 small boats. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has promised to bring in laws this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. Well, from today, more than 4,600 bus routes across England will have fares capped at £2 for a single trip. More than 130 operators outside of London have joined the scheme, which will last until the end of March. The cap is being paid for with a £60 million government fund. And Croatia has become the latest country to join the EU's border-free Schengen zone and the euro currency. EU's Ursula von der Leyen joined the country's Prime Minister for a coffee, which was paid with euros. Croatia is the youngest country to have become a member of the European Union when it joined back in 2013. OK, this is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Nana.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 5 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. As ever, we are live on TV, online and on digital radio. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is editor of the Labour List, Peter Edwards, also former MP Stephen Pound, and also, who else? We've got Lois Perry, director of Car 26, still to come. Since this is the first day of 2023, I'd like to know what your New Year's resolutions are. We did this yesterday, though, so I'm more interested in what amazing things you're planning to do. Are you looking forward to finding true love or getting rid of the one that you've got right now? Maybe today is a big day for you. You could maybe sign up for a divorce or something, or perhaps you're thinking of changing your fitness regime. We'll discuss that with my guest shortly. And also, as ever, I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So do you have a New Year's resolution? Is this something that you want to do? Perhaps you're with a partner that you're thinking, you looked at the way they were chewing their food at the Christmas table and thought, that person needs to go. You know, perhaps you're looking at yourself thinking, I've eaten too much, I need to get myself fit. Or perhaps you're actually looking for love. Many of us try and resolve to do things like giving up alcohol or give up meat or try and go vegan, or perhaps you're planning to only eat meat, even if it's only just for January. But some find the festive season a bit of a struggle and resolve to find true love, to get rid of somebody who's getting in their way. My next guests know all about that. I'll start with Sarah Davidson. Now, if you've decided that one of your New Year's resolutions is to change a relationship, then listen up. Divorce coach Sarah Davidson and podcaster is here to tell us more about that. Also joining me is Lee Webb. He's a personal trainer, will help you get fit. And then we've got Natalia, who will talk about how we can choose to find our partners. Right, so I'm going to start with you. Today is a huge day for people who want to sign up for divorce, I hear. Is this true?
Yes, it's divorce day is the first working day that we're back in the office. That's when family lawyers tend to report that they get more inquiries than any other day of the year after the Christmas holidays, which is going to happen because that time, quality time with your partner, if there's cracks in that relationship, is going to make it worse. So that's why quite often this is the boom time, unfortunately, for breakups.
And what do they do? People just literally filing for divorce straight off?
Yeah, people are definitely making inquiries about how do I break up, what does that look like, what's the process, how do I get support? So, yeah, that's what we see a lot of at this time of year. And it's a difficult time for people. Even if you're making the decision to go, it can be really difficult to process.
So you're a divorce coach. I mean, some people may not have heard your story. So, you know, what happened to you? Because you did this out of experiencing divorce yourself.
I did indeed, yes. About 12 years ago, I found out of the blue that my husband didn't want to be married to me anymore.
How did you find out?
Yeah, love that question. The juicy story. Yeah, well, I found out because I found a contact lens box in my bedside table, and I don't wear contact lenses, and it had a false eyelash in it. And,
oh dear.
And so I knew that, well, something was wrong. So it all came out then. And my ex-husband was very happy, met someone he was madly in love with, and moved on very quickly and started a new family. So I went through that trauma and did all that, you know, ugly crying and not knowing what was going to happen next. Really scary times. And I think a lot
was she attractive?
She was absolutely beautiful, yes, unfortunately. It makes it worse, but yeah, absolutely beautiful, still is. And, you know, that's, I think it does make it a bit harder.
So she hasn't got fat then, there's nothing you can't help her out, Lee.
No, unfortunately, she's still lovely. So, yeah, and we actually get on really well now, so, yeah.
That helps, that helps.
Yeah, it does, yeah, it does.
Have you ever been divorced? Have you been through divorce, Lee, or anything like that?
I have, about 8-9 years ago. I wasn't divorced, but I split up with my kid's mum. And it was quite a traumatic time. I was fit anyhow, because I was a personal trainer back then. And I just had a mad 6 months of going to nightclubs, pretending I was 20 all over again. Yeah. So it was pretty much like that, making myself look silly. And then after about 6 months, I kind of knuckled down, went on a couple of dating apps and sort of like had one relationship after the other, which wasn't good for me at the time.
Never good for anyone.
So this time round, I stopped a little bit longer, and then I'm now into a new relationship.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's lovely. And with your previous partner, how many? You've got like 5 kids, are you?
I had 5 children, all with the same partner as well. Yeah, yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids. Maybe that had something to do with it. So many children. So many children. So with this divorce, this obviously people going through this. Well, what is the first thing? Is the first thing to contact the solicitor? Is it what was your first thing that you did?
Well, I think. Well, I mean, my situation, it was quite difficult because we weren't really communicating very well at that point, and I've definitely learned a lot from that experience. But if you can sit down and have a conversation and be amicable, that's great. You know, you don't want to have huge legal costs. That's one of the things we want to avoid. And there's easier ways of getting divorced these days. So you don't have to go to a lawyer. You can do it online even. So there's other ways to do it. But communication is going to be key to help you through.
See, now once you've got rid of that person or they've got rid of you, you might do the thing that you went out, you maybe eat a load of things, put on a lot of weight, or perhaps you're just thinking, I want to get fit. Lee, I mean, you're a personal trainer. Tell us a bit about you. What's your story?
I've been a personal trainer now for about 22 years, working in the fitness industry. And funny enough, you were saying that all these people are getting divorced in January. I tend to pick them up in February and March. Once they've got over their divorce and end of relationship, and then they want to get back on places like Tinder, Badoo and all of that. And they want to get on dating sites and make themselves look a hell of a lot better. So that's where I get them, picking them up in February and March.
Interesting story there with you, because you came on before and you had been diagnosed with cancer.
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with cancer at the beginning of this year. I've ended up on the year with a personal best for my run.
Wow.
And it's just, it brought me back a little bit from how hard fitness actually can be. To get yourself back into shape, get that strength back up, get the speed back up to where I was running and things like that. I've still got about another 3 to 5 months before I'm going to be pre-cancer fit, so anywhere near where I was pre-cancer.
But I suppose going through that, you probably have a more sort of affinity with people when they're training. 'Cause sometimes when you're training people, you sort of forget how difficult it can be for people to get into it. When you then experience it, you think, oh, right.
Absolutely. So with beginners, I used to look at them and think, God almighty, you can't even lift a 5-kilo dumbbell. But now, actually, because I lost a lot of muscle mass during my treatment, it brought that empathy back where I now know how much a 5-kilo dumbbell does weigh. And it is quite hard for some of the exercises to do.
It's interesting. The humility can sort of return when something bad happens, but then obviously you're training people now to get fit. Let's we have a little. Do we have a little video of some of the things that we can do? Well, let's show people some of the things, because you set this up for us, didn't you?
Yeah, so this is a video with how to exercise, because a lot of people just think they've got to go to the latest gym or they've got to buy the most expensive equipment. This is literally body weight and bands.
Brilliant, let's do it.
Hello, my name's Lee, and over the next 60 seconds, I'm going to teach you some effective exercises which will improve your cardiovascular system, improve your strength and endurance, and help you with your weight loss.
Running up and down.
Yeah, so it's running on the spot. You can run on the spot. You can go out for a jog. You can go out for a walk as well. If you're at home, running on the spot, box steps and things like that, a good, easy way. As you can see there, using the body, press-ups, and there's an easy way to do press-ups there, which is the 3-quarter press-up.
Which is on your knees, isn't it?
Which is on your knees. And then, of course, just rowing with bands. So that's working your back of your shoulders and your biceps. And then, of course, shoulder press with a band. You actually sit on the bands. These are all cheap pieces of equipment that you can get from a lot of shops. All the major chains are now selling them.
But your squats are very low. Your bum's gone beneath
and the body
your
squat,
knees.
yeah.
You shouldn't do that, I heard. I didn't think
You can go like that. They say bum to basement and things like that. But you can also do it on the chair and on a step.
Yeah.
And that makes it just a little bit easier.
Well, let's talk to Natalia Kobylinka. Now, she's a family therapist, and she's going to help you once you've had that breakup. You're now looking for someone new, Natalia. So talk to me about what is it that you do to help people is it more to helping people get that relationship?
I work with people 22 years, and I help many women to find partner and how to be happy in relationship. What I notice, a lot of women, they want to divorce. And they say, something wrong with him. I am great, I am amazing, problem in my husband. And usually she told, she is God on sofa. She doesn't do anything, she is not motivated, he is not take initiative. I want something stronger man than me. But she not understand. Then, if you have trauma of betrayal, if you control a woman, you cannot. You will divorce and you will again attract a weak man, problematic man, difficult man. First, you need to work with yourself and to start to trust men, to surrender men, to follow them. And if you don't learn to change it, you can divorce again and again and again, and if you have the same pattern of behavior. And my work to help people to go through this trauma and to start to feel really happy with yourself first. When you trust, you can be partnership in relationship.
That's interesting, because I'm very happy with myself, but unfortunately, that cycle that you described is always happening to me. So what about for men, if they're in a relationship? How do they, keep it real and keep their partner interested and,
At the moment, I consult many people everywhere in the world. I notice and have a lot of maturity single men who cannot find a woman. And all women tell me, Natalia, where I can find a normal man, maturity man? Girls, in place and have maturity women. If you are maturity women, what means maturity? You don't choose a man, you say, I want him to be very high, to be very successful, to be with big muscles, to understand me, to read my mind, to be spiritual. No, you need to understand men who choose you, you choose through them. You don't choose from all men. You cannot say, I want to be with Brad Pitt. You need to see which man has around you and which man already choose you. Also, we work to increase your price on market. We have all market of when you want to sell yourself as a wife, as a husband, and we can to increase your price. We can make PR of your price. And very often when I work with my clients, we increase your price, and after you attract better partner in your life, and we make a marriage, and I help my clients to pass all the steps from to be single, to be happy marriage, and to have a child. Because very often now women cannot be pregnancy. And we work also with these blockages. But in the beginning, you need to understand, you choose from men who choose you already. You don't choose from all the men, unfortunately, girls.
How do you know if the man has chosen you?
If you're more than 6 months alone, you have some troubles here. If you are 6 months
That's hilarious.
Is it true? Sorry, is she right?
Well, I hope not, because then there's something seriously wrong with me. But what I love is the fact that I think we have to work out not just what we want, but also what we need from a partner. I think that's really important. So I do agree that going on that personal development journey, taking some time to figure that out is key.
Well, Natalia, listen, I've been alone for a while now. There's something wrong in here. How can I fix this?
Have some pain from experience. It's a very often trauma from childhood, trauma of betrayal. You're afraid that your father maybe leave you. Maybe he was violent with your mother. Maybe your previous partner was very bad with you. Maybe cheat you. And you have this pain between you, and this pain don't allow you to go in a relationship. Because if you don't have trauma and you go out, has so many, you go to fitness, to park, to gym, have men. Men exist. It exists like a man. And if you make actions to meet with them, to speak with them, okay, not first, not second, but after 100, you can meet with somebody which you feel good.
Right, Natalia, listen, thank you so much. You better come here next week. We'll get you in next week. You can give us a whole thing about this. Thank you so much, Natalia. Natalia, brilliant. That's all about how you get your own man, lovely, and woman. God, that was interesting, wasn't it? Did any of that resonate? Well, some of it resonated with you.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. And maybe we've just got high standards too. You know, I think there is sometimes when you're single, it's because you're looking for the right person rather than, maybe just any.
Maybe just not picking from the ones around you. And Lee, thank you so much. If people want to find out about your training stuff, where can they go?
www.bodyfirstpt.co.uk.
And Sarah, what about you?
SarahDavison.com.
Lovely. Well, listen, thank you so much to my guests for coming in and giving us a sort of new sort of zhuzh. If you want to get rid of your partner, get yourself fit and then find a new one. And don't forget, Natalia will be here next week as well to give us more tips. Thank you so much to you guys for coming along. That is Lee and Sarah and Natalia. On the way, I'm asking, last year we had 3 Prime Ministers and 4 Chancellors. What does 2023 have in store for us? All of that after the weather.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold with rain and hail snow over Scotland, showers and bright spells elsewhere. Here's the details. Patchy rain and hail snow will continue to gradually clear to the east, but it will remain mostly cloudy with hill fog lingering in places. A mostly cloudy day to start the new year across Northern Ireland. There will also be some patchy light rain at times. There'll be a mixture of bright and sunny spells along with scattered showers across northwest England. The showers will be heavy and blustery at times. Bright or sunny spells will edge in from the west, although it will stay rather cloudy in the east. There'll be locally heavy blustery showers in the west too. It's a rather cloudy and windy start to the new year across the Midlands. An isolated heavy shower is possible in the west. A mild day for all. Cloudy and overcast conditions will persist across East Anglia with limited bright spells. The odd shower is also possible. Cloud will thicken across southern England with outbreaks of rain edging in from the south, turning heavy at times. Rather windy too, especially along the coast, but feeling mild for all. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dewbs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dewbs & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Good afternoon. If you've just joined me, where have you been? It's coming up to 24 minutes after 5 o'clock. You missed most of the show, but it's fine because you've got the last sort of 45 minutes. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's now time, though, for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, what does the future hold for the Conservatives and Labour parties? Wannabe Blairite Rishi Sunak released a different type of video celebrating Christmas. Rather than a traditional Christmas message to the nation, the Prime Minister, with his great big mug, called up numerous British public servants around the world to congratulate them on what a superb job they were doing.
Hello.
Hi, is that Chris?
Yes, Ethan. Hi there.
Hi, Chris. It's Rishi Sunak. How are you?
What? Hello? Oh my God.
Hi, is that Nick? My name's Rishi.
Oh my goodness. Hello.
Oh, God. Honestly, what a load of guff. First name terms being casual, Mr Nice Guy, it's just a bit cringeworthy, isn't it? But Labour's Sir Keir Starmer also released a Christmas message where he really inspired and excited the nation.
Christmas helps us remember that through the hard times and the good, the people and the moments that give our lives meaning stay constant. For so many people...
Oh, sorry. Honestly, what a snooze fest. Life's a constant. Yeah, you're a constant bore, Keir. Thank you very much. Although Labour are entering 2023 around 20 to 25 points ahead in the polls. The Prime Minister remains confident that the Tories can turn this around. I mean, this comes as an MRP poll. Bifocal data suggests that many undecided Tory voters may rob Labour of a general election victory in 2024, as red wall voters may feel unprepared to vote for them. So, in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, what does the future hold for the Conservatives and the Labour Party? Right, let's talk to political commentator Anna McGovern, psychotherapist Lucy Beresford, and also Joseph Robertson, who's a political commentator and chairman of Orthodox Conservatives. Right, so I'm going to start with you, Anna, because Anna's here in the studio. Anna, so talk to me, Anna. What do you think? The two parties, what does their future hold? What do you think?
I think the general election, of course, is coming up, and I think for Rishi Sunak, he will say anything that he needs to say at the moment to keep his seat warm in number 10. And Labour, at the same time, I think with the two parties, I struggle to know the difference between, with either of their policies, because we've seen with Starmer before, he's marketing himself as that, the new Labour, the Blairite, and he's said things before and then completely said something else completely different to in the media.
They're all doing that all the time, aren't they?
Yes, of course.
I mean, they keep saying one thing, they do another, and they're all U-turning. It's becoming a bit of a sort of U-turn fest. What about you, Joseph? What do you think? These two parties, one of them, they're almost saying the same thing, actually.
Well, I think we've got, a Conservative government that's been operating to the left of Blair for consecutive premierships for a long time. Nothing's really changed since Blair. It's just got worse. I think we have to remember that, on pretty much every point, the Conservatives have failed to be Conservative. On the other hand, you have a dangerous lunatic in Starmer who's made even more dangerous by the fact that he seems boring enough not to matter. He does matter. He's got a deep-seated agenda, and I think it could possibly be even worse.
Lucy, what do you make of this then? Because for us as electorate, we feel, well, I mean, I personally feel politically homeless. There's not much to sort of separate the parties from each other. What do you think the psychology is behind that for the electorate in particular, as we look at this and think, you know, because I feel homeless, I don't know what to do. What do you think the psychology is for those of us who are suffering, struggling to find something to vote for?
Well, the point is that there isn't a general election tomorrow. So if I were to ask you who you're going to vote for tomorrow, you might come up with a slightly more hypothetical answer than if it was actually crunch time and you were about to go into the polling booth. And that's why polling can be such an artificial construct. The key thing is that politics is very much about the narratives that we tell ourselves about our lives and about the lives of those around us. So when we do go into the ballot box, we are thinking about, first of all, how is our life? Does it feel better? Do we have more money in our pocket? Can we afford our mortgage? Has my granny had her hip replacement? Has my sister been able to find a psychotherapist? Has my dad got a dentist? All of those things. So we ask ourselves, what's our life like now? Then we ask ourselves a second thing, who do we blame for this? Do we blame the pandemic? Do we blame Vladimir Putin and the war in Ukraine? Or do we blame the government or the unions or other people who may kind of have some kind of influence onto our vote? And the third thing is, what do I imagine my life will be like in the future? And that's the hardest thing for any political party, particularly for the opposition. What you're going to be saying is, how am I going to feel in the hypothetical future? If I'm selling you a pig.
Lucy, I was going to say, it looks very nice where you are, by the way. You're on holiday somewhere. You look very suntanned, like it's warm and lovely. Somewhere nice. Are you abroad?
Westminster it's very balmy for this time of year. The key thing is, if you think about how sophisticated advertising is as an industry, this is what politicians need to do. They need to sell a vision that's really hard for human brain to compute.
I want to bring Anna in. So they're selling a vision because Lucy's pointed out, very valid point actually. It's not tomorrow. The election is in a while. Do you think that do you think there's a chance that we could flip it over and that the Conservatives could find themselves in a good position?
I mean, back in 2019, I joined the Conservative Party because I really resonated with the messages of Boris Johnson, and I truly believe that the Conservatives were the right choice for this country. But of course, there is the narrative that's sold by the media. Many people, they open their newspapers and they see what's being reported. That will have a really large influence on how they then vote when it comes down to the general election. However, there's been so much damage over the last few years, and I think the pandemic is a really big hitting point of that. Many people feel very disillusioned. They don't trust the party anymore, and they don't feel like they're getting what they're voting for. And I think that will really influence how we then the result of the general election.
Well, Joseph, what do you think then is the future for these parties? Is there a future, and is there a possibility that maybe a third party could emerge?
There's a possibility, but I think the reality is Conservatives want to change their fortunes. People have to stop being lazy within the party. We've been talking for a long time now about reclaiming the party for the Conservatives, but I just don't see much evidence of that happening. I think we've got initiatives now like the Conservative Democratic Association set up by Lord Peter Cruddas, ourselves at the Orthodox Conservatives, and many other people who are saying, no, actually, look, this is our party. If you're woke, if you're green, if you're liberal, get out and join a different one. Why should we have to go and find a third party when, in fact, it's meant to do what it says on the tin, right? We're meant to be a Conservative party. So, this broad church idea has been creeping into the edge of lunacy for me over the last few years. It's got to the point where so many different points of view are included. No one really knows what they believe anymore. And that's the death cry of any party. And I think it's the same for both major parties. Labour doesn't have a coherent philosophy either.
No. Well, they're sort of merging into one. Listen, Joseph, thank you very much. That's Joseph Robertson, Lucy Beresford, and also Anna McGovern. Lovely to talk to you all. So, what do you think? You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Plenty more to come on today's show. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
It's
31 minutes past 5. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Police in Brazil say they've detained a man who tried to enter the inauguration of new President Lula da Silva carrying an explosive device and a knife. The leftist leader is being sworn in under tightened security in the Brazilian capital. Follows threats of violence by supporters of his far-right predecessor. Pope Francis has paid his respects to his predecessor whilst addressing worshippers at the Vatican. Pope Benedict XVI died within Vatican City at the age of 95. Tomorrow morning, his body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica, where people will be able to pay their respects. He'll lie in state for 3 days until his funeral on the 5th of January. Celebrations to mark the start of 2023 have taken place across the nation, with more than 100,000 people gathering in central London alone to watch the fireworks. London's mayor says the 12-minute display, which was the first since the start of the pandemic, is the biggest in Europe. The sold-out show featured a tribute to the late Queen. It also highlighted the Lionesses' Euros win and showed solidarity with Ukraine. A record number of migrants, almost 46,000, crossed the English Channel to the UK last year. That's 60% higher than the figure for 2021. The last crossings of 2022 took place on Christmas Day, when 90 people made the journey from France on 2 small boats. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has promised to bring in laws this year to make it clear to those who enter the country illegally that they won't be allowed to stay. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're watching GB News. Back to Nana in just a moment.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 37 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget, you can also stream us live on YouTube. I'm Nana Akua. Now, joining me live are my panel, Lois Perry, and also Peter Edwards, and also Stephen Pound. Right, so the show's nothing without you, and you've been joining me in the discussion. David has views on both Harry and the New Year's resolution honours list, shun Harry's book and deny him the publicity and give out knighthoods to acts of bravery only. Paul is not impressed by Sir Keir Starmer's New Year's message and says he would have been better with a violin on his New Year talk. Yeah, true, I can see that. Right, let's get to our Great British Debate this hour. What does the future hold for the Conservatives and Labour parties? Lois and Peter and also Stephen join me. Right, so what do you think? I'm going to start with, I'll start with Peter. This year we could potentially have an election. Do you think we will?
No, I think as with any Prime Minister who's behind in the polls, he'll go the full 5 years. So, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that means we could go as late as January 2025.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and I think...
Not that we'll have one in January.
Well, but I think there's a narrow path to Tories' victory. I think Labour has every reason to be confident, but, complacency is the enemy. I think inflation will come down. Now, I would argue that's not because of anything the government's done, but because of global factors. But if inflation comes down, I suspect there could be a negative campaign from the Tories, an attempt to gloss over the cost of living crisis we've had. I very much feel the roots of that are in the previous Tory Prime Ministers that we had. But the Tory line, I think, however cynical it might be, the economy is recovering, don't let Labour wreck it. And that's why I think Labour needs a strong team and a clear economic narrative, and it can win, but we'll never be complacent.
What do you think, Les?
I think the problem is that the Conservative Party might be called the Conservatives, but they're not actually in any way conservative whatsoever. You've got every single party has exactly the same policies at the moment.
There's nothing between them.
Yeah, I know. Well, especially with net zero and stuff, and I think the roots of the cost of living stuff is in net zero, actually. But Lee Anderson is a common sense politician, a proper Tory who actually engages with the voters. And when you've got this polling that's saying that I think it was 30% of the red wall voters don't know which way they're going to go. I mean, the fly in the ointment actually could be the Reform Party, because I think that Labour will win. And I've been doing some figures, and actually, if they had a landslide, you'd have about 400 Labour, 170 Tory. But if Reform came in, and maybe if Mr Farage could be persuaded to take it over again, I don't know, you could end up with 20 MPs, 20 Reform MPs, and they could have the balance of power.
I don't think Reform
I think there's an element of pick and mix about politics nowadays. But I think the real problem is, for years, I first got elected in 1982, and I think Gladstone was the Prime Minister then, or was it Disraeli? I forget. But I tend to ask people about what they're going to do. This morning, where I live in Hanwell, at the Poets' Corner, we had a New Year's Day walk to clear the cobwebs.
How civilised.
Well, it is very well. Layla Shepherd North, who organised it, should have laid on mulled wine, but she didn't. But look, I was asking people. What's interesting is the reaction from most people is who they're going to vote for next time. Their reaction is, I don't know, because I have no confidence in the system.
And all the policies are the same.
Well, this is the problem that politicians have got. And I take my share of the blame for it. I think everybody has. I think you've got to actually fess up to it sometimes. We have let the country down. We have let the public down, and we have let politics down. Politics and politicians have a huge job to do now to sort of row back. Now, I think Keir Starmer is an honest, decent, intelligent,
boring
patriot. Well, give me a bit of boring. I'm sorry. After Boris, after Liz Truss, give me competence.
We've got boring. We've got Rishi Sunak. Look, no, that's not good enough. Yeah. It's not good enough to have your only trading thing being you're boring. Also, the problem I'm having with Keir Starmer is that he's unable to work out whether a woman has a penis or not. So I'm not forgetting that. I'm not prepared to forget that at all. Because no. I'm sorry. I let you speak. I didn't interrupt. I listened very carefully.
You told me to shut up.
No, but just then I didn't. I let you speak. I let you speak, and now I'm talking, so don't talk over me. But what I'm saying here is that Keir Starmer, he has not shown any mettle at all. He's remained very quiet. He went on about, political bubble things like Partygate. He's hiding his policies. Yeah. I don't like the fact that he's just going under the radar, hoping that he'll get in by default. That cannot be a way to move forward. I don't believe that.
Well, the Labour Party doesn't represent working people anymore at all. They're the woke party, and the Tories don't represent aspirational people or middle classes anymore. So we have a uni party. We have a one-party state, which is just everyone's got exactly the same policies.
Well, they all want net zero as well. This show's nothing without you. Let's bring on our great British voice, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. And today we'll head to Edinburgh to speak to Brian Dugan, although he's never where he says he is. Are you actually in Edinburgh this time, Brian? You're not, are you? You're in Solihull, aren't you?
I'm in Solihull.
I knew it all the time, Brian.
But you could tell that just by the background.
Well, just because he does it all the time, then he's not. Then when I think he's in Solihull, he's then somewhere else and not even in Edinburgh. All right, Brian, what do you think then? The Tories, we've got the Conservatives and the Labour Party. I mean, what is the future of these parties? Is this all we're going to have?
Oof. Let's hope it's not all we're going to have. No, I think you're right. I mean, I think, was it Stephen said that politicians have let the country down? They've let the country down enormously. It's actually a travesty. And there's not much between the political parties right now. Maybe that's part of the dilemma in terms of, what you were asking in terms of the red wall. Will that fall? Who knows? We don't know. I mean, no one stands for anything anymore. That's the problem. And in terms of boring... Sorry, Nana?
Well, I said they're always U-turning as well, but you were talking about boring.
They're U-turning like speedboats instead of tankers. It's actually ridiculous. But it's because nobody stands for anything, really. You're right. I mean, Keir Starmer hasn't really come out and stamped exactly what he's about. But I think that's a ploy, that's a tactic, and he's probably dead right because the Tories, just by talking are completely alienating everybody. And, it's ridiculous in terms of what Rishi Sunak has come in to try to mend is utterly self-inflicted by the Tory party themselves in terms of, it's plain to anyone that in terms of that election, that if you could go for Liz Truss, as opposed to what Rishi was talking about, and then was proven right instantly afterwards, but when it was too late, and we've lost £30 billion or whatever as a result of that. That just shows you where we are in terms of the politics of the country.
Himself, though, some of his delaying tactics cost the taxpayer a lot of money as well. There's things that he should have done quicker, where he lost money too. And also, let's not forget, he is the architect of this. Yeah. So I don't believe what you just said there. I appreciate that, but he's just trying to fix his own mess. Listen, Brian, lovely to talk to you. Just very briefly, you've got about 10 seconds. Do you have a New Year's resolution?
I do, but I'm not telling you because in a few weeks you're going to ask me and I'm going to tell you that I didn't live up to it.
That's what I thought. Brian Dugan, thank you so much. He's our great British voice. Lovely to talk to him. He's there in Solihull, not Edinburgh. He moves about a bit. Right, finally, though, I want to focus on sport, specifically the issue of transgender athletes in sport. Now, the World Boxing Council has called for the establishment of a separate category for transgender boxers. Separately, rules come into force today from the World Triathlon Executive Board. It's decided to have a separate category for trans athletes based on testosterone levels. With me now is author and journalist Helen Joyce. Good afternoon, Helen.
Hi, nice to be on.
Yeah, nice to see you. So, Helen, is this a good idea, separate categories for trans athletes?
I mean, it's better than sticking people into the categories where they identify, but there's nothing wrong with just saying people compete according to their sex. Like, unless a woman has taken testosterone, there's no reason she shouldn't compete in the women's category. If she has, then she can't compete safely in the women's category. And by a woman, I mean any woman, a biological woman, no matter how she identifies. And if you try and make these separate transgender categories, the risk is you've got almost no athletes in them. And then you lump in the trans men and the trans women together. So basically, I'd just say we should compete according to sex in sport, because that's why we have separate categories. We don't have different categories for people who feel differently about their religion, or people with different eye colour or different hair colour or anything like that. Sex is just this big divide in physical attributes that requires us to have two separate categories. So yeah, I just don't think it's going to be manageable to have separate categories for transgender people as such, too small a number.
But the problem then is that, and also the different dictionary definition of woman now includes trans women, which is fine. I mean, if that's what they want to do, I personally wouldn't define it as that. I'd just define a trans woman as a trans woman and a woman as a woman. But the problem we are now facing, though, is that in many sports, in some sports, it has been acceptable for a trans woman to compete against a woman, and it is still going on in some places. And to me, and to most people around me, it seems blatantly obvious, but there's an elephant in the room that, for some others, they don't get it. I don't understand why people don't get it.
I don't really either. I think it's extraordinary. I mean, it seems to me that, you know, anyone who has ever, you know, any mother who's ever arm wrestled her 14-year-old son would know that you can't have women and men competing fairly and safely against each other. And, I mean, we all know that in mammals there are two sexes, and that the sexes can't change. So I struggle, even after writing a book about these issues, I struggle at trying to explain to people what's going on, because it's so stupid. You know, obviously sport is about bodies. It's not about identities. Obviously it's about physical capabilities. You know, we don't allow people to identify as under 18 when they're over 18 for sports purposes. We don't allow people to identify into the Paralympics. We don't allow people to identify into over 65s competitions. So why the hell do we allow male people to identify into female competitions? There's clearly a problem here. It clearly has to be sorted. Some sports have taken the necessary steps. Swimming is a notable first mover in saying that the female category is a closed category that is open, that is available only for female people whose birth certificate said female when they were born and who have not taken testosterone. And then everyone else can compete in an open category. That's the best solution.
I want to bring in my panel as well. So welcome to my panel, Helen. Helen's here. I've got... who are you again? No, it's Stephen.
I'm the silent one.
Yeah, he's the one with his mouth shut. So if you've got a question for Helen, have a chat with Helen about this, because you seem to think it's... What was your view on this transgender idea with these...
No, I think what they've done in swimming is actually very, very sensible, because who on earth is going to actually come forward into that other category? But look, I think the problem is we start with a basic premise where there's a dichotomy, where we think you're either one thing or the other, and then it gets muddy. And I think the point is that we cannot keep going into subdividing and subdividing and subdividing. I think there's men, there's women, and there's people who are transgender.
So they should, or Lois, I mean, should they have a separate category then?
Well, I thought it was very, very sensible, the boxing thing, saying that there should be a separate category. Yeah, because, and maybe, the pool is quite small, or they think it might be quite small, but maybe it won't be quite as small as people think.
Well, Helen said that, but Helen, you seem to think otherwise, that there shouldn't be a separate category. I think there should. If people are confused in terms of their gender and...
I want to know what they're going to do about people who claim to be non-binary. So a few sporting competitions have now offered prizes for, male, female and non-binary. And guess what? The male non-binary people beat the female non-binary people. So I just don't see that this is feasible. You can dance around this all you like, but the fact is that sport is about bodies, and bodies are about sex, not identity.
It is a good point that once you start going down this sort of hole, then you end up creating different categories. It's almost like the whole gender identity. So you've got you've got air self, peer self, all the different.
I've not heard of that.
You've not heard of them. You've seen the gender, all the gender types.
So I mean, according to I think it's Facebook, there are 76 genders. So the thing is, it's not justifiable to have a separate category for men who identify as women or women who identify as men. Because why would you have a separate category for these people? It makes no more sense than having a Christian boxing category or something. It's not based on any material reality, and sport is about material reality of bodies.
Peter, have you got something to post to Helen with regard to this? You've been quite quiet about all this gender stuff.
Well, I'm learning a lot from this discussion, but I think the idea in swimming that you have an open category and a closed one is quite interesting. I'd like to learn a bit more about that, because I think whatever your conclusion, the starting point of discussion is that there's an unfairness in having someone born a man, someone born a woman compete against each other. And in something like boxing, there's a danger associated with that as well. So the idea of refining the categories but it still being a manageable number does seem quite sensible.
Yeah, it does. But let's face it, though, if it's the men will always win if they're against the women in most of the sporting categories. So to me, it's sort of slight bit of misogyny there as well. I mean,
not darts.
What am I wrong there? To me, it sort of smacks of a bit of misogyny.
Yeah, I mean, if you want women to have fair competition, you're going to have a competition that excludes all male people. And actually, funnily enough, we say in sports that there are male competitions and female competitions, but actually, usually the male competition is open to females. They just don't qualify. There's nothing stopping women from playing American football in America right now. They just never qualify. They're just not big and strong enough. So we actually do have closed category for female and open category for everybody in nearly every sport already. So let's just stick with that. And then we're not saying anything about people's gender identities. You can identify how you like.
Yes, it's true. Well, listen, Helen, thank you very much for joining us. That is Helen Joyce, who's an author and journalist, being perfectly sensible, saying perfectly sensible things. But unfortunately, when you say these things, you start getting called names. We're just being quite blatant about it. Well, of course, it's New Year's Day. So I want to hear what your New Year's resolutions are. As soon as you wanted to speak, what's yours?
Well, no, just thinking about a quick question is, and darts and snooker. My God, New Year's resolution. I've been, as I now approach the sort of the extra time in the football game of life, and as I'm looking, at the referee's final whistle, and I've not got that long to go, I think of all the ridiculous, amazing things I've done, which bore everybody to tears. So I'm going to finally write that book. It's going to be inspired by. It's going to be called The Scum Also Rises.
OK, I like the sound of that. Well, what about you, Peter? New Year's resolutions? Have you got any?
Well, I certainly don't want to go on a diet or lose any weight because I'm pretty slim already. So I think maybe. And this discussion underlined it, it's a tough time for Britain and the world, but just try and find the positives in life and not be too downcast, even when we feel like we're getting buffeted by turmoil. Try and be upbeat.
Try and be upbeat, he says. What about you, Lois? You must have quite a few on your list.
Well, the first one is to stop falling in love with unsuitable men.
Is that right?
Steve Pound again.
You need to speak to Natalia. Natalia,
OK, I'll have a chat with her.
She'll be in the studio next week. You can talk to her.
I'll have a chat with her and get my strange brain sorted out. But secondly, I'm doing January. I'm doing dry January to raise money for Safe Steps. I've got which is a domestic violence charity, and I've got a page on Just Giving. So I'm hoping that I'll kickstart my healthy liver situation with dry January.
I can't imagine.
My other book title, of course, would be Rebel Without a Clue.
Very good, but nothing to do with dry January.
I thought you were going to say rebel without a cause. At all. My New Year's resolution is to be omnipotent, all-powerful.
Oh, well, you've already done it. You're all right.
No. Queen of the world.
That's what I think. Take over. A whole take over the world. That's my plan.
Fluorescent Queen of the world.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's my plan. I think it's a perfectly reasonable plan. I've got nothing. It was actually the same one as last year, so I'm just rolling it over as I do every single year. I think that's it.
Excellent.
Well, listen, thank you so much to my wonderful panellists for joining me today. Broadcaster and director of Car 26, Lois Perry, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lovely to see you. Also, thank you very much to former editor of The Labellist, Peter Edwards.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Peter. When are you back? You're on everything.
As soon as you invite me.
Fantastic. And also, thank you so much to you, Peter Edwards, former Labour MP. Lovely to see you.
I'm Stephen Pound.
Oh, Stephen Pound, there you go. I forgot about him again. And thank you to you for your company. I'll leave you with the weather. Take care.
How could you
enjoy,
confuse us?
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hey.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold with rain and hail snow over Scotland, showers and bright spells elsewhere. Here's the details. Patchy rain and hail snow will continue to gradually clear to the east, but it will remain mostly cloudy with hill fog lingering in places. A mostly cloudy day to start the new year across Northern Ireland. There will also be some patchy light rain at times. There'll be a mixture of bright and sunny spells along with scattered showers across northwest England. The showers will be heavy and blustery at times. Bright or sunny spells will edge in from the west, although it will stay rather cloudy in the east. There'll be locally heavy blustery showers in the west too. It's a rather cloudy and windy start to the new year across the Midlands. An isolated heavy shower is possible in the west. A mild day for all. Cloudy and overcast conditions will persist across East Anglia with limited bright spells. The odd shower is also possible. Cloud will thicken across southern England with outbreaks of rain edging in from the south, turning heavy at times. Rather windy too, especially along the coast, but feeling mild for all. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want